Chapter 622. All around them, the trees were charred and the ground was dark. It was as if they had just experienced a huge fire. The Dragon King stood in the midst of it with his hands behind his back. His posture was tall and straight and he looked dignified. He was like a black hole that attracted all the gazes, making Lu Yen, Long Zhen and Wuxia beside him pale in comparison. When he saw Lu Qing coming over, he merely nodded slightly without any words or other actions. Long Zhen, on the other hand, twisted his neck left and right, looking excited. Wuxia's aura spread outwards as though she couldn't wait. Lu Yen and Empress Luo were used to such situations, so they were unfazed by this little internal sparring session. "Alright, everyone's here. Let's draw lots," said Ning Zitong with a smile. As she spoke, she took out 6 balls of paper from her pocket. With a shake of her palm, she threw them into the air. Long Zhen reached out and grabbed, causing the surrounding air to heat up, forming a contrast between hot and cold. A strong gust of wind blew, causing all the paper balls to fly towards him. At this moment, it was as though he had the supernatural ability to grab things out of thin air. Pa pa pa. Lu Yen, Ning Zitong and Wuxia also reached out and used various techniques to grab the paper balls. Their powers competed in the air, creating a tug-of-war that caused the paper balls to fall and fly. However, they couldn't land on the ground. For the physical invulnerability experts of the fire sect, it wasn't difficult to communicate with the heavens and earth, affect the environment and fight for items through thin air. The difficult part was to do so without destroying the paper balls. Given the nature of the fire sect's martial arts, the slightest mistake could cause the paper balls to burn to ashes. In fact, they could even ignite themselves if they were rubbed too hard. The sparring session starts with drawing lots. Lu Qing, who was participating in it for the first time, watched with interest. His hands were hesitant as he muttered to himself, "If I were to use the Ice Sect's blizzard, would that be considered cheating? I don't have to worry about destroying the paper balls." Just as he was hesitating, Dragon King made his move. He clenched his fist and placed it in front of him. A heavy feeling filled the air and tore at the hot air, causing the paper balls to fly towards him like moths to a flame. Spots of scarlet light came one after another, but they didn't ignite anything. However, the paper balls seemed to be at a critical point. Their surface was dry and brittle, and with a little more external force, they would burst into flames. This was the Dragon King's character. He was extreme, loved to go to extremes and would not leave any chance for his opponent. Seeing this, Ning Zitong and the rest had no choice but to give up. They waited until the Dragon King picked up a paper ball and flicked out the rest before they tried to snatch another one. However, as the paper ball was already brittle and could easily fall apart, they restrained their strength and weakened the fight. They quickly drew their own lot and left the last one for Lu Qing. Lu Qing more or less understood that this was a routine. Without moving his feet or raising his hand, a cold gust of wind blew and sent the paper ball into his palm. "Let's just draw lots normally in the future." Ning Zitong glanced at it and said half-jokingly. At this time, the Dragon King unfurled the paper and said expressionlessly, 3, 2. Lu Yen looked at his palm and said indifferently, "1. Which one of you is 1? Long Zhen stretched his shoulders and chuckled as he looked at Wuxia and the rest. His scalp was so shiny that it could be used as a mirror. Lu Qing looked down and saw a clear blue-black 1 written in the middle of the unfolded paper ball. "I'm number 3. Ning Zitong waved the note. Wuxia's answer was short and to the point. She was slightly disappointed. She wanted to see the martial arts of ice and fire. "Looks like we're in the first round?" Long Zhen smirked as he looked at Lu Qing. Although he was asking in return, he was already moving towards the center of the abandoned land. His eyes were smiling and his fighting spirit was evident in every detail. Qin Shitao, Ning Zitong and the rest retreated. Lu Qing took a few steps forward and stood about 30 meters away from his opponent. In his eyes, Long Zhen, who was known as the Optimus Prime, was indeed very tall. Even without expanding his muscles and stretching his joints, he was more than 1 meters tall. He was definitely a giant of the current generation. Long Zhen's skin was tanned to a bronze color. Although his muscles were hidden under the loose martial arts suit, the heaviness was obvious. It made one wonder if his ankle joints could withstand that terrifying weight. The answer was yes. Not only could Long Zhen's legs withstand the weight of his entire body, they were also very agile. He could run and jump and they were as tough as alloys. This was a fire sect physical invulnerability expert known for his strength. This was a veteran first pin expert. Those who had just made the great leap would be classified as third pin. Then, based on a yearly cycle of the lunar calendar, Each third pin expert's chances of winning against physical invulnerability experts of the same third pin level as well as their chances of winning against second pin level experts would be calculated. As long as one of the two reached the standard, they would be classified as second pin. Correspondingly, the evaluation of first pin was the same. Above that would be the experts who had defeated most of the physical invulnerability experts and obtained titles. Although Lu Qing had killed 2 physical invulnerability level enemies, the Mummy and the Dark Knight Bat, the former was only at the level of a third pin at his peak. The latter seemed to have only recently advanced. Relying on his various and mysterious supernatural abilities, he might be on the verge of a second pin. There was definitely a clear gap between him and a veteran first pin who had the ability to aspire for a title. More importantly, in that battle the Mummy was heavily injured and so was Dark Knight Bat. The 2 heavenly sons of heaven on his side had joined forces and killed the Mummy at the start of the battle with a sneak attack. In short, the reason for his strength was relatively low. It was Lu Qing's first time fighting a first pin expert who was in peak physical condition and mentally prepared. Of course, after mastering the Ice Sect and Fire Sect physical invulnerability chapters, his strength had improved tremendously. He was no longer comparable to when he was in Nile. This was a good opportunity to familiarize himself with his moves and find his position. Bam! Bam! Within a radius of a few dozen meters, the temperature rose rapidly. Clusters of crimson flames rose from the ground. Lu Qing's short hair seemed to have been scorched a few times by an invisible heat. It started to bend and there was even a burnt smell. The fight between physical invulnerability experts had changed from a pure mental battle to a battle between illusion and reality. His pores were affected and his breathing became difficult. Without hesitation, Lu Qing communicated with the heavens and earth and displayed his own characteristics. Against a first pin expert, he couldn't think of any reason to bind one of his hands and compete only with the Fire Sect techniques. The heavens and earth seemed to darken, but certain places were brighter. It was as though stars were appearing one after another. Long Jin narrowed his eyes and snorted. His aura was at its peak and he seemed to have turned into a huge burning fireball. Heavy and scorching, he pulled and interfered with the resplendence in the surrounding void, causing them to either change their trajectories or shatter. Seeing the starry sky on the verge of collapse, Lu Qing knew that he was still lacking in maturity and couldn't fully utilize it. He decided to change his visualization. He enlarged a corner of the universe and concentrated his energy to show the stellar system. The stars gathered one after another, forming a blazing sun that was 70% illusion and 30% reality in front of Lu Qing. It also felt heavy, but it was also glowing brightly. It clashed with Long Zhen's aura across space, pulling at each other and sweeping away all matter between them. It was like 2 neighboring stars clashing with gravity to determine their respective areas of influence. Whoosh! The air was torn apart and split into 2 sides, setting off violent winds. The clusters of flames on the ground also took their respective sides and ran towards their targets. This was the scene at the core of the battle. Long Zhen had the upper hand, but Lu Qing held his ground firmly and didn't lose ground. In the surrounding area, at the edge of the battle, the red flames were extinguished one by one. There was a gradual difference in temperature. The further one went, the colder it felt. There was even a thin layer of frost forming on the ground. Very good. Long Zhen suddenly roared. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Lu Qing in an instant, as though he was caught in the wind and flames. His thick, muscular arms first pulled back and then shot out. In that instant, Lu Qing felt as though he was looking at a huge cannon defending a city. It suddenly retreated, gathered its strength, and fired an earth-shattering shot. The extremely strong recoil passed through Long Zhen's back and spread to his knees and ankles. He slammed into the ground, causing the surroundings to shake. What kind of strength and power was this? This was a punch and kick derived from the 4th move of the Fire Sect, Flying Flame Meteor. For physical invulnerability experts, the battle was too intense and not the right time. Using a complete set of physical invulnerability moves could easily result in self-detonation. Therefore, conventional battles were based on the characteristics of one's body and focused on using certain techniques. That tanned fist was almost the size of a child's head. The pale golden flames clung tightly to it, forming only a thin layer. It was like a small part of an iceberg that surfaced from the water. It seemed to have enveloped the entire area, giving off a feeling that it was unavoidable. Lu Qing knew that this was due to the hidden fire virtue, which allowed the fist to change its direction at any time. Changing direction a few times consecutively made it easy to fall into a trap. This trend connected with the outside world and influenced each other's chi. Therefore, a punch could cover the entire sky. If Meng Qi didn't dodge, he could use force concentration and the fighting formula to counter the attack. He would be able to match his opponent in terms of strength, but the problem was that his opponent still had the hidden fire virtue. He wouldn't be able to use Emperor Yen at the same time when he used double outburst. This would cause the power of the explosion to be irresistible and hit him directly. While thinking, Lu Qing took a deep breath and activated his Dan force. He gently pushed out his palm to counter Long Zhen's attack with softness. Just as his palm blocked Long Zhen's terrifying fist, crystals suddenly gushed out and covered the golden flames in a thick layer of frost, delaying the explosion of fire virtue. Bam! In a clash of pure strength, Lu Qing was slightly inferior. However, he didn't suffer any damage because he used his palm against Long Zhen's fist. He took a step back and turned his body with a spin of his heel. All of a sudden, a storm of snow blew in all directions, covering his tracks in an instant. No one knew whether he had gone to the left or the right. It was a movement technique derived from the second move of the Ice Sect, mesmerizing snow step. Chapter 623. The northern wind howled, disrupting one's hearing. The dense snow obscured one's vision and made one lose sight. In such a white and cold environment, one couldn't see more than 3 meters away. Even one's mind couldn't reach that far. Boom! The fire force in Long Zhen's fist expanded, and the reddish-gold flames surged in all directions, melting many snowflakes and disrupting the path of the storm. It cleared a large area as though it was a cannon blast from a main battle tank. However, after the explosion subsided, the wind returned and the snowflakes fell again. Everything returned to white, as though a modern army had encountered the power of nature. In the eyes of the Dragon King and Empress Luo, the 70% illusory blazing sun that Lu Qing had formed didn't disappear as the storm engulfed it. Instead, it moved to the edge of the battlefield in a balanced manner. The further one was from it, the darker and colder it became. Qin Chitao watched for a while before nodding his head slightly. Whoosh! As the wind blew, Long Zhen felt as though he was in the polar regions and had encountered extremely bad weather. In such an environment, amidst the heavy snow, there would be a punch or a flying kick from time to time. Sometimes, there would be a frenzied chain of attacks, a concentrated attack and a few feints. Long Zhen couldn't grasp the pattern of the attacks and couldn't catch them. He could only react passively and rely on his spirit to judge and defend against the attacks within a 3 to 4 meter radius. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. Long Zhen was like an agile elephant. Punching and kicking, he blocked a few rounds of Lu Cheng's surprise attacks. He knew he couldn't continue like this. Focusing his mind, he changed his visualization and unleashed brute force. All of a sudden, the giant fireball that had fought with Lu Cheng's star across space appeared again. With Long Zhen at the center of the fireball, it suddenly expanded. The tumbling blazing blue flames were like ocean waves. Each wave was higher than the previous one. They surged crazily and almost filled the entire battlefield. They canceled out the storm, clearing the sky and emptying the earth. The indistinguishable scene disappeared, but Long Zhen couldn't lock onto Lu Cheng's aura. His heart skipped a beat. Then he saw Lu Cheng in his navy blue martial arts suit. He didn't know when he had retreated to the edge. Behind him was a huge, heavy, scorching, blazing white sun that was 70% illusory and 30% real. At this moment he was like Emperor Yen descending. Bang! Lu Cheng stomped his feet and using his body as a fist, struck out. The great sun was attracted and merged with him, causing his body to shine brightly. His figure faded and turned into a burning star. Rubbing against the air currents at high speed, he charged towards Long Zhen in an instant. A distance of a few dozen meters was really gone in the blink of an eye. This was also the application of the fourth style of the fire sect, Flying Flame Meteor. It highlighted the word fast, and used external forces to increase its power. The light in his eyes was so bright that he could not see anything. Long Zhen was a rank 1 expert who had experienced many battles. He did not panic at all. He clenched his fists and punched the air in front of him. The golden flames compressed and solidified, giving off a heavy feeling. The surrounding air currents and the soil on the ground were affected by this, causing sparks to appear. Bit by bit, they were densely packed like a prairie fire. Rumble. Just as the meteor came crashing, the golden flames exploded and collided violently with the violent impact of the other party, creating a terrifying hurricane that extinguished many of the sparks. Amidst the wind and waves, Long Zhen raised his arms and blocked Lu Cheng's sideways collision. Both of their martial arts suits were scorched black and had burn holes. Both of them were covered in dirt. Slash. Long Zhen was forced to slide back a few meters, leaving behind 2 distinct marks. Lu Cheng's momentum finally weakened. Bam! Before they could separate, Long Zhen had already launched a low kick. Lu Cheng did the same. The two of them struck with their elbows, knees, tangles and grabs in the narrow space between them. Bursts of flames rang out one after another. Danger lurked in the moment, precision hidden in the millimeter as they walked on the tightrope. Bam bam bam. The continuous close-range combat made both of them feel satisfied. Lu Cheng countered with his enemy heart-freezing move, which was a combination of danger premonition. He didn't appear weak at all. In this aspect, the fire sect physical invulnerability experts who weren't naturally proficient in close-range combat. Although they also had the realm of all-seeing God and sensed the minute details within a certain radius, they were still inferior to Long Zhen. Bam! Lu Cheng's forearm swung backwards, but was caught by Long Zhen's palm. He took 2 steps back, tensed his left leg, ignited a thin layer of golden flames, and lashed out at his enemy's knee. Just as Lu Cheng was about to lift his knee to counter the attack, Long Zhen's left leg suddenly emitted an implosion sound. Strangely, it changed direction and landed heavily on the ground ahead of time. The 15th move of the fire sect, Jet Spray, was derived from the second move of the physical invulnerability chapter, Golden Godly Flames. Bam! The ground shook under Long Zhen's stomp. The sparks in the surroundings gathered and erupted under Lu Cheng. Like an erupting volcano, they shot up into the sky. In his seemingly passive defense, Long Zhen had already left a trigger for his counterattack. His experience and ruthlessness were evident. Lu Cheng had just executed his move when he was faced with such a situation. The blazing fire dragon soared up from below and was about to swallow him whole. He fell backwards abruptly and flipped in the air, allowing the crimson fire dragon to shoot a distance away. It brushed past his calves and soared into the sky, scattering like fireworks. It was this split second that allowed Lu Cheng to form an ice armor on his legs. It melted into water and dripped down. There were still some sparks left on his trousers, but they couldn't hurt his heat-resistant skin. They were shaken off. Lu Cheng had just steadied himself when Long Zhen pounced on him. He swung his arms and coupled with the rapid eruption of Dan force, he hammered ferociously and compactly. Each of his protruding muscles displayed the beauty of human strength, as though they could crush everything. Bam bam bam. Lu Cheng alternated between force concentration and the simplified fighting formula. He pulled his shoulders and struck with both arms, blocking his opponent's frenzied attacks with precision and concealment of force. Even so, under that monstrous strength, his fists, arms and elbows were gradually numb. His legs couldn't bear the pressure and he couldn't shake off the attacks. Amidst the flame-like invasion, the temperature of the surroundings was getting higher and higher. Just a breath would burn one's airway. Lu Cheng's vision was also affected. Everything he saw was distorted. Bam bam bam. Once Long Zhen gained the upper hand, his attacks seemed endless until he defeated his opponent. The ground beneath his feet caved in. Sand and pebbles flew everywhere. It was a mess. His height was even more eye-catching, making his opponent look like a dwarf looking up at a deity. As expected of a first-pin mighty one, Lu Cheng couldn't help but sigh as he struggled to hold on. However, his ice heart was already formed. Such emotions were like a reflection in a lake, untraceable. Bam! Long Zhen struck again. Lu Cheng's sleeves were charred black and his arms were trembling. He took a step back, leaving deep footprints on the ground. Taking a step forward, Long Zhen retracted his chi and then exploded it. He raised his left arm again and struck again with a hard punch imbued with fire force. At this moment, Lu Cheng opened his left hand and pressed forward with his thumb. A crystal-clear and sharp cold light shot towards his opponent's head at the speed of a bullet. Ice Spirit Holy Light could be used as both a blade and a sword. Long Zhen seemed to have expected it. He tilted his head and the cold light missed. It didn't affect the swing of his left fist. Seeing this, Lu Cheng turned his wrist and the cold light turned from a stab to a slash, cutting towards his opponent's neck. At the same time he pulled his other shoulder back and changed from the front to the side, avoiding Long Zhen's punch. Piak! Long Zhen lowered his body and retracted his head into his chest like a tortoise facing danger. Even so, the explosion of his dance stage did not stop. With a shake of his right arm, it turned into a whip and lashed out. Lu Cheng once again used force concentration and struck his opponent's forearm with his elbow. Bam! He drifted away like a kite. Long Zhen was about to give chase and not give him a chance to cover his tracks with the wind and snow. However, his body suddenly felt cold and his thoughts stopped for a moment. Lu Cheng had used the Ice Spirit Godly Light Sword to buy himself a chance to use severe warning. He landed on the ground and swayed his center of gravity. As though he had turned into the wind and snow, he whistled again and escaped Long Zhen's suffocating and extremely aggressive attack. After a long battle, Long Zhen seemed to be a little impatient. He didn't hold back anymore. As his fists and legs collided, he gradually formed a ball of pale golden flames. After a dozen moves, he created a ball of blazing white and a ball of crimson red. These 3 balls of flames circled around his body. Each had a different color, making him look like a god descending from the heavens. In ancient times, ordinary people who hadn't seen much would have prostrated themselves before such a scene. The reason why 9 rotations of 5 flames, Descend of the Sun, was the ultimate skill of the fire sect was because it could be used to store power in a normal attack, allowing the 5 flames to coil around each other and not explode immediately. When the preparation was complete, it could be used at the right time without any restrictions. Of course, this was very mentally draining and would be quite a burden. Seeing that Long Zhen had already formed the 3 flames, Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. He felt that he couldn't allow his opponent to continue preparing. Amidst the wind and snow, he retracted his qi and blood and shifted the stars to form the fighting formula. Bam! As he released his qi and blood, his body suddenly grew. His martial arts suit tightened and his exaggerated muscles were exposed. At this moment, Lu Cheng wasn't much shorter than Long Zhen. He took a step forward and threw a punch at his opponent's side. He wanted to use the most intense shockwave to ignite a ball of flames and advance. At this moment, Long Zhen suddenly revealed a cunning and smug smile. The crimson red, pale golden, and blazing white flames circling around him flew out and gathered at the tip of his fist. He didn't expect to use his ultimate move only after he had prepared all 5 flames. His posture just now was to force Lu Cheng to initiate the attack. Rumble. The ground trembled and a mushroom cloud rose. A shallow crater appeared on the ground with burn marks everywhere. Lu Cheng closed his eyes and destroyed the first wave of shockwaves. However, the subsequent waves made his organs shake and churn. Long Zhen didn't give him a chance to catch his breath. He forcefully broke through the flaming waves and came close to him. Another round of fire-like invasion followed. The negative effects on his body had accumulated and even force concentration couldn't completely remove them. Lu Cheng couldn't withstand this round of frenzied attacks. His stance was broken and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Long Zhen wins, announced the referee Ning Zitong, who was watching leisurely from afar. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and felt a burning pain in his throat. Long Zhen relaxed his posture and laughed loudly. Feels good. After recalling the battle, Lu Cheng, who had learned a lot, slowly walked to the edge. He saw Dragon King looking at him. Qin Chitao nodded slightly. Close to second pin. Not bad. When I fully master the physical invulnerability chapters of the Ice and Fire sect, coupled with the combination of martial arts and cultivation that I didn't use because I wanted to familiarize myself with the moves, my combat strength will definitely increase by a lot. Lu Cheng's gloomy mood after losing the sparring match was swept away. P.S. It's a sad thing. With the recent neck cleanup, I have to delete the intimate scenes at the beginning. Actually, I was under a lot of pressure to write this. Many readers were wondering why such an upright squid classmate would go down the dirty path and become wretched. However, after thinking for a long time, I still decided to write it. Firstly, it's the feeling of youth and love, and secondly, it's hard not to have mixed feelings. Secondly, I wanted to write about the harmony of soul and body. Thirdly, it's to create and contrast the character. If I don't compare how Lu Cheng behaves in front of Ku to how he behaves in front of others, the image of him restraining himself for the sake of love can't be fulfilled. Similarly, it's the same for Ko. Chapter 624. After carefully observing the next 2 matches, Lu Cheng pondered over the details as he returned to his personal lounge. After a shower, he headed to the restaurant and tasted the delicacies meticulously prepared by the chef. Looks like it's going to rain again. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he took out a tissue and wiped his mouth. He rubbed his slightly bulging belly and looked out the window at the cloudy sky. It wasn't even 6 yet, but the city was already dark. After lamenting, he left the restaurant and went to the side entrance of the club. Amin had already informed the driver Zhao Zhenhua to park the nanny van nearby. After a fierce battle, Lu Cheng wasn't in the best of spirits. As soon as he sat in the car, he leaned against the soft and bouncy back of the seat, closed his eyes and held the armrest. He was half resting, half reminiscing and summarizing his gains. Amin saw that he was silent and confirmed that the audio-visual entertainment system was turned off. She picked up the walkie-talkie and whispered to Zhao Zhenhua to drive directly to the villa by Xiaopei Lake. Since they didn't pass through many congested areas along the way, the nanny van stopped in front of the villa after 20 minutes. Lu Cheng collected his wandering thoughts and opened his eyes. He got out of the car, looked at the sky and said to Amin, "You guys can go back. I don't have anything else to do here." Okay. Amin had more or less figured out Lu Cheng's daily routine, so she nodded and waved her hand. "Goodbye, Mr. Lu. I'll come back tomorrow at the usual time." The engine hummed and the sound grew distant. Lu Cheng's surroundings became unusually quiet. After standing for a few seconds, he turned around and opened the door through fingerprint verification. The house was dark as if night had come early. However, the faint light from the windows on both sides still faintly outlined the outline of the walls, pillars and furniture. Lu Cheng closed the door behind him and stood beside the shoe cabinet. He slowly looked around. On the coffee table that shone with a metallic luster, cups were neatly placed upside down. None of them were filled with hot water or emitted the aroma of tea. The huge TV stood silently. The screen was pitch black without any light or sound. In the semi-open kitchen, the frying pan, saucepan and milk pot were all in place. Compared to yesterday, nothing had changed. The night wind that was about to rain blew through the screen, bringing a bit of chill. Lu Cheng stared blankly for more than 10 seconds. He didn't turn on the lights. Relying on his powerful vision, he changed his shoes and closed all the windows. Then he walked up the stairs shrouded in darkness to the second floor, neither too lightly nor too heavily. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of footsteps echoed peacefully. There was almost no light in the corridor on the second floor, but Lu Cheng seemed to be able to see in the dark. He accurately avoided the half-high table with the flower pots and pushed open the door to the master bedroom. Compared to when he received the property, this place was already different. The layout had been changed quite a bit. The most obvious thing was that there was a recliner that could be used to sleep on next to the floor-to-ceiling window. On the other side of the door, there was a fully enclosed and spacious balcony with a swing-like hammock. He still didn't turn on the light. He walked to the side of the recliner and sat down. After a day of hard training and a fierce battle, his tired body sank into the softness that made every inch of his muscles feel comfortable. Lying down, he couldn't help but recall the conversation he had with his little fairy when they were discussing the layout of the master bedroom. "I want a recliner next to the floor-to-ceiling window. When I have nothing to do in the afternoon, I can lie there and bask in the warm sunlight. I can read novels and watch videos leisurely. When I'm sleepy, I can sleep until I wake up naturally. Do I need sunscreen? You're so annoying." The corners of his mouth curled up imperceptibly. Lu Cheng lay quietly in the darkness, looking at the darkening night sky. He didn't seem to be thinking about anything, but at the same time, it felt like he was reliving the scenes of the past. Outside the window, the wind was strong and so was the rain. Drip, 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 drip. 10 minutes later, his phone rang with a special reminder. He picked it up and saw Yenjika using an emoji of red scarf on head, determined to succeed. "I love waking up early. I love morning exercises." Lu Cheng chuckled and unlocked the screen. He typed quickly, snickering emoji. "I'm enjoying your recliner comfortably." After replying, he turned on the desk lamp beside him. The dim but warm light spilled out, resisting the invasion of darkness and silence. After chatting with Ku for a while, he played games and read novels for a while. When Kai Zhongming, Jiang Fei and the others finished their work or went home from work, he shifted his focus to chatting. On the way, he would occasionally watch the live broadcast of a martial arts competition and seriously discuss some interesting issues with Peng Liyun, Ren Li and En Chaoyang in the group chat. When Yen Zhika finished her training and was enjoying breakfast, he began to share his afternoon sparring experience with his wife. They discussed how to use the Dan equilibrium to practice 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the Sun. When Yen Zhika got busy with her studies, the frequency of chatting slowed down. Lu Cheng went back to browsing the internet like before. Before going to bed, he called his mother, Qi Fong, and told her about his life that hadn't changed much recently. He also asked about the situation at home. Just like that, a day passed. After a night of heavy rain, the sun rose as promised. In the car, Lu Cheng browsed the news about the places where he could see the sea. After breakfast, he returned to the training room for physical invulnerability experts. He calmly sat cross-legged in front of the visualization diagram of 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the Sun. "My biggest problem now is that I can't form a fireball and keep it circling around me for a long time. It's hard to maintain it for a long time. In other words, I have to prepare it in one go and use it as soon as possible. Only then can I use one of the 2 most powerful martial arts of the fire sect. This is practically useless in actual combat." Lu Qing recalled yesterday's training process and the content of his discussion with Yan Zhika. At first, he wanted to imitate the experience of comprehending the vast starry sky. Absolute frost. During the Dan equilibrium, he wanted to suppress the ice spirit force, shrink the darkness, and highlight the stars and Emperor Yen force. He wanted to use this to activate 9 rotations of 5 flames. However, after careful consideration and discussion, he realized that this also required him to use his killer move as soon as possible. He couldn't just stand there and wait for others to attack. He didn't even have time to form a fireball. However, 5 fireballs of different natures circled around his body to maintain balance. Isn't this similar to the starry sky of the universe when he reached the Dan equilibrium? Starting from this train of thought, Lu Qing came up with a solution. Since physical invulnerability experts can connect heaven and earth, influence their surroundings and almost become one with nature, why can't they treat it as a whole? Within the whole they can form a rotating balance. Their bodies are cold and dark, and they can rotate in balance with the surrounding fireballs. This definitely requires the mind to act as a bridge between the two sides. However, the 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the Sun is a unique skill that requires the mind to make a complicated connection to maintain the 5 fireballs circling. In other words, there's no need for me to practice this difficult technique. There's a more convenient, simpler path that suits me. A path that integrates the inside and outside. Thinking of this, Lu Qing was suddenly enlightened. He stood up abruptly, took a deep look at the visualization diagram, and strengthened his understanding of the charm. Then he left the small room and returned to the practice field outside. He put on a stance and stood steadily. A starry sky appeared in his mind and rapidly enlarged. Darkness was at the edges, and the sun was in the center, forming the image of the heavy Emperor Yen. His fire force circulated. As the visualization changed, a faint purple fireball condensed around his body. At this moment, the starry sky of the universe in Lu Qing's mind was mainly dark and cold. Using the connection between his mind, root pulp, and the outside world, he guided the faint purple fireball to rotate in a stable and balanced manner. During the process, Lu Qing felt that this method didn't cause much of a burden on his mind. Suddenly he had a plan. If the rotation of 5 flames follows this pattern, I can maintain it longer than normal methods. Very, very long. Diske. That's too many changes. Lu Qing tried to condense a second fireball. After the visualization diagram changed, his mind, root pulp, and organs all changed. The faint purple fireball around him lost its balance and crashed to the ground. Boom. An explosion occurred. The alloy was dented and the cracks were obvious. Looking at this scene, Lu Qing learned his lesson from his failure. After repeated trial and error, he finally found a solution, which was to maintain the balance of rotation between stars, while condensing other fireballs. A few days later, he had 5 fireballs of different colors revolving around him and maintained them for a long time. Lu Qing was in a good mood after finally mastering the 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the Sun. While resting, he bragged to his wife. Then he browsed the news and saw eye-catching news. The 4 heavenly sons of China are competing for the first time. All of them have attained physical invulnerability before the age of 24. The Super Platinum generation is about to meet. Zhihai of the north, Lu Qing of the south, Liyun of the east, and Rinli of the west, who will challenge the Dragon King and the Warrior Sage in the next few years. After browsing, Lu Qing suddenly remembered something. The Grandmaster battle is coming. Tomorrow I'll be heading to Jianghu City with Long Zhen, Guijie, and the rest. As for the Dragon King, he didn't need to go. He was the current generation's Grandmaster, waiting for the challengers. Chapter 625. Recalling the Battle of Masters incident, Lu Qing glanced at the news headlines that were either on steroids or had funny words. He switched to QQ and clicked into the group that he had blocked. He saw Peng Liyun, Rinli, and En Chaoyang in a heated discussion. He swiped his thumb and scrolled up the chat history. At the beginning it was a link to a news article sent by Hipster. After a few minutes, Rinli appeared and asked with a confused expression, "Why am I in the west?" "Because Kongtong Mountain is in the west." And Chaoyang used 2 full stops to express his feelings. "Really?" Rinli replied with a suspicious expression. Peng Liyun appeared and sent an emoji of Conan's twitching mouth. "You didn't study geography in high school?" Rinli answered confidently, "That's right. The geography books didn't say that Kongtong Mountain is in the west." "Really?" Peng Liyun tagged in Chaoyang. And Chaoyang replied, "I graduated from high school more than 5 years ago. How could I remember clearly?" At this point, Lu Qing couldn't help but send a laughing out loud emoji. Peng Liyun didn't give up. Lu Qing, do you still remember? I chose science in high school. Lu Qing smiled evilly. As for the general geography exam, our school is very lax. As long as you don't flip through the books in front of the invigilator, you can do whatever you want. Even so, I didn't score 80. It can't be? If you could flip through the books, you would definitely score 90 and above. For a moment, Peng Liyun doubted Lu Qing's IQ. He was in a daze for more than half an hour and still scored high in the general geography exam. Lu Qing sent an emoji of covering his face and sighing. When I entered the exam hall, I realized that half of my geography book had been torn apart by my two troublemaker cousins. Luckily, I was surrounded by people I knew. So you've always been stupid. And Chaoyang sighed. It was true that there were only wrong names, but no wrong nicknames. Recalling the embarrassing incident during the formation competition, Lu Qing quickly changed the topic. Priest, Renli, when are you arriving at Jiuqiu? I'm already there. Peng Liyun replied after 10 seconds. A few seconds later, Renli sent a link with an angry look. Quick, go and scold him. Lu Qing clicked on it and saw a news article. The title was similar to the one he had seen before, but the content had more analysis and predictions. The Wisdom King, Zhihai, has been a physical invulnerability expert for 4 years and has received a title. Putting that aside for now, Peng Liyun, Renli, and Lu Qing have only made the great leap less than 3 months ago. They are considered to have just grasped the basics of their martial arts. Indeed, at the same level, they are indeed stronger than cultivators of the same rank in all aspects. If everyone leaps over the Dragon Gate at the same time, the strength they display will undoubtedly be the strongest. This is determined by a deeper and more solid foundation and more outstanding talent. In other words, as long as they stabilize their realm and familiarize themselves with their martial arts, they will be considered to be the cream of the crop among the third pin experts. They won't be weaker than those veteran physical invulnerability experts who have been stuck at this level for many years. Of course, every physical invulnerability expert who can make the great leap is an outstanding figure. It's just that there's always someone stronger. Also, to be honest, many experts will be satisfied once they transform into a dragon and ascend to the heavenly realm. They will lose their hunger for martial arts and glory. Although they still persist in training, their improvement will obviously slow down. The reason isn't external but in their hearts. Let's not talk about this. Back to the topic. Based on our previous analysis, we can determine the current strength of Peng, Lu, and Renli by comparing them to the Wisdom King. If only third pin experts participate in the master battle, they will have a chance to reach the end. Unfortunately, this is just a fantasy. Although it won't be like the Battle of Kings and Warrior Sages where many seniors who have retired from professional competitions will participate, at the very least, almost all the experts in their prime will participate, excluding those who are recuperating. They have a certain chance of winning against a rank 2, and a little hope of winning against a rank 1, but that's all. That's why a lot of the news today is just headlines. They're maliciously hyping up hot topics. Without any exaggeration, what they're looking forward to will happen 3 or 5 years later, not now. In this master battle, Lu Qing, Renli, and Peng Liyun will at most enter the top 32, and that will depend on their good luck in the draw. There's nothing wrong with that. After reading it, Lu Qing felt that the analysis was on point. Why did you scold him? Renli was silent for a moment. After a long while she replied, I sent the wrong link. It's this. She added another piece of news. The content was similar to a bet. It was guessing the chances of the 3 heavenly sons other than Zhihai being eliminated in the first 2 days of the double elimination competition. There were 86 physical invulnerability experts who had signed up for the master battle. Including the 16 Inhumans who had passed the preliminaries, there were 102 contestants. The initial double elimination competition was where one would be eliminated after 2 losses. Only the top 32 would be left. Then, a single loss would be eliminated to determine the martial artist who would challenge the previous master battle. This bet was that Lu Qing, Renli, and Peng Liyun, who had just reached the physical invulnerability stage and lacked actual combat experience, would suffer 2 consecutive losses and leave the master battle without winning a single match. Why bother competing with such sensationalist people? Winning the competition is the best way to retaliate, advised Lu Qing, who had been through hundreds of battles in the field of public opinion. Yes. Renli nodded. Sensationalist is a good word. I'll reply to them. Did you understand what I meant? Lu Qing was momentarily speechless. He could only reply with a blank expression. Peng Liyun wasn't sure if he was in a daze and accidentally touched his phone, or if he shared the same feelings. And Chaoyang, on the other hand, asked calmly, "Didn't you say that you didn't register an account because you didn't want to argue with others?" "My little niece lent me her phone," Renli answered frankly. Seeing that she was in high spirits, Lu Qing changed the topic. "Renli, I'm going to Jianghu tomorrow. What about you? Shall the three of us get together before the competition?" Peng Liyun was the first to reply. "Why don't we get together after the competition? The one with the highest ranking and the one who lasts the longest gets to treat. What do you think?" "Sure. Sure." Lu Qing and Renli gave affirmative replies almost at the same time. Their fighting spirit was further stimulated by this small bet. And Chaoyang smiled bitterly and said, "I don't even have the right to treat." He had actually maintained his mentality well. As he was only 24.5 years old and already had the strength of a fourth pin, he had plenty of time and hope to make the great leap. However, no one knew how long it would take. "I'm definitely buying this deal." Lu Qing teased himself as he left the group and shared this matter with Yan Zhika. She cooperated and sent a microphone emoji. "Student Lu Qing, what are your goals and thoughts for this master battle?" Mainly to see the world," Lu Qing replied humbly. In addition to this relatively peaceful attitude, he was also filled with emotions and yearning, "Those mighty ones that I've seen growing up, those mighty ones that I've heard so much about, I'm finally among you. I finally have the chance to challenge you. Warrior Sage Chen Donglu, King of Swords Wuxia, Kirin Dong Baxin, Lion King Shang Yud, Spear King Huang Ku, Clown Gu Jianxi, God-slaying Saber Lu Yongyuan, Evening Light, Liang Yifan." All the famous names flashed through Lu Cheng's mind, making him feel as though his blood was boiling. The next morning after training, Lu Qing, Guijie and Long Zhen were led by Empress Luo, Ning Zitong to the airport. They boarded the club's commercial jet and headed straight for Jianghu. Due to his previous injury, Lu Yin had chosen to give up on this master battle. However, he still tagged along to fulfill his duties as a coach. Outside the window, the sea of clouds formed a sea. There were occasional bumps, but to a physical invulnerability mighty one, such effects were negligible. The journey was smooth. They arrived at Jianghu City in the central region at noon and boarded a few commercial vehicles arranged by the foreign affairs team. As usual, there were fans welcoming them in the hotel lobby. Lu Qing and the rest signed their names. With the help of Amin and the other assistants, they got their room cards and entered the elevator. "There's a pre-match banquet the day after tomorrow. Don't forget it," Ning Zitong reminded them as the elevator moved up. She turned to Lu Qing and smiled. "You have a high chance of playing in the opening match." Lu Qing looked back at her in confusion. As one of the contestants, how high could his chances be during the draw? Ning Zitong smiled and explained, "The three of you are in the limelight and are a hot topic. The organizing committee intends to pick one of you to play in the opening match. 1/3 chance. That's not low." Lu Qing couldn't help but smile. Chapter 626. October 29th, Friday, 7 p.m., Jianghu City Martial Arts Association Banquet Hall. Round tables were placed neatly with 6 chairs around them. The red carpet extended from the entrance to the stage at the very front, dividing the hall into 2. Lu Qing and the other mighty ones walked slowly along the long carpet amidst the flashing lights and clicking sounds. Outside the entrance, there were many security guards preventing the excited crowd from approaching. With so many physical invulnerability experts gathered, security was no longer a concern. Unless a nuclear bomb was launched, no one would be foolish enough to attack this place. However, there had to be someone to maintain order and prevent any opportunists. As soon as they left the focus of the media, Lu Qing, who was following behind Ning Zitong, saw Peng Liyun in blue. He was wearing a combination of Taoist robes and training clothes. He looked relaxed, as though his mind was wandering in every corner of the hall. "You're early," greeted Lu Qing with a smile. He looked around and didn't see any other mighty ones from the Shangqing sect around Peng Liyun, including but not limited to the warrior sage Qian Donglu. Peng Liyun's eyes gradually became clear. He smiled and said, "You guys are late." After that he called out, "Senior Empress Luo." Ning Zitong nodded slightly and asked elegantly, "The warrior sage doesn't want to go out again?" "Martial Uncle Qian is like that. He doesn't like such social occasions," replied Peng Liyun. Everyone knew that although the warrior sage Qian Donglu was an outstanding figure that only appeared once in 1,000 years, he had a lazy personality. If he could sit, he would not stand. If he could lie down, he would not sit. He had no interest in such banquets. He found it troublesome to socialize with others, so he was often absent. What about the others? Asked Lu Qing curiously. Peng Liyun's eyes became unfocused again. He seemed to have thought of something. While his friend waited patiently, he finally smiled bitterly and said, "They haven't arrived yet," following which he explained, "Sect Master hates to take planes. He took the high-speed rail. Wasn't there a continuous downpour a few days ago? Many flights were cancelled or delayed. He only left today with Marshal Uncle Yunyan and Senior Mingyi accompanying him. I'm the only representative from the Shangqing sect now." Lu Qing almost laughed out loud. Ning Zitong, Long Zhen and the rest were right beside him. He didn't bother to exchange pleasantries with Peng Liyun. Instead, he searched for the nameplate on the banquet table and walked forward. After about 10 steps, Ning Zitong lowered her voice and chuckled. "Do you know why Yun Yan and Ming He insisted on accompanying Taoist Wu Guang?" A thought flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. Could this be the older version of Renli? We can't let a sect leader take the high-speed rail alone, right? He guessed hesitantly. Then leave it to the people from the External Affairs Hall of the Shangqing sect. Ning Zitong snickered. Not only is Taoist Wu Guang afraid of flying, but he also thinks that it's like a floating coffin. He won't be able to use it in the event of an emergency. Moreover, he's a sect master with a very weak presence. There was a time when the Shangqing sect's annual ritual ended without anyone noticing that the sect master never showed up. With Yun Yan and Ming He following us, the organizing committee will at least be able to remember that some of the participants have yet to arrive. This could be said to be very unique. Lu Qing secretly complained. He looked around and finally found the table with his name written on it. Just as he was about to approach, another acquaintance entered his eyes. Ren Li, with her long black hair hanging loosely over her shoulders, opened her big eyes that seemed to only exist in manga, and accompanied a woman in a white dress as she passed by. The woman was bare-faced and had bangs that covered half of her eyebrows. She was beautiful and refined. At first glance, she looked like she was in her early 20s. However, her deep, dark eyes gave off the vibe of someone who had experienced the world. As a loyal fan of top professional competitions and title matches, Lu Qing recognized her without any introduction. She was the first Pin Mighty One of Kongtong School, Ren Li's master, Qiling the Blazing Sword. From her appearance and outfit, it was hard to tell that she was from the same generation as her master, the Queen of Thought, Fei Dan. Her exact age was kept secret at her insistence, but she was definitely in her 50s. She had been in professional competitions for 20 to 30 years, but she always lost the chance to win a title due to a freak combination of factors. Until now, she had only won a few intersect competitions and had no other honors. It was said that in the few years when Empress Luo debuted, she was often compared to Empress Luo due to her equally stunning looks and equally powerful strength. She was called Little Qiling, which resulted in a grudge between them. For a very long period of time, she was the victim of Empress Luo. Seeing Ning Zitong, Qiling smiled faintly. "Your dress is really interesting. It's so colorful and beautifully matched. It's nothing compared to Senior Qi's beauty. Even in the most ordinary outfit, you can still amaze everyone," said Ning Zitong with a smile. "However, as a former grandmaster, I have to be a little more formal when I go on stage to draw lots later." She emphasized the words former grandmaster. She had received 2 titles before, one was king, and the other was grandmaster. But both were before the Dragon King and the warrior sage shone brightly. Qiling's expression froze for a moment, then she nodded with an elegant smile. "Then I won't delay you." With that, she led Renli to the side. Throughout the entire process, Renli kept quiet like a lady and didn't say a word. After a few steps, Renli lowered her voice and asked, "Master, who was that just now?" "Ning Zitong from Longhu," replied Qiling calmly. Realization dawned on Renli. I knew the person beside her looked like Lu Cheng. So it's really him. It had been close to 3 months since they last met. As a competent face blind, she was already unfamiliar with Lu Cheng's looks. On the other hand, Lu Cheng vaguely sensed the sarcasm in Empress Luo and Qiling's conversation when they sat down at the dining table. They were mocking each other for being old and coquettish, and Empress Luo had dealt a fatal blow with the title incident. Damn, this conversation sounds like a monk playing mind games. Gathering his thoughts, Lu Cheng looked around and saw mighty ones he had only seen on TV. Some of them had been active for a decade or two, while others had just broken through a few years ago and were rapidly advancing. However, he was familiar with their names. As for their faces, some of them had even appeared on posters in his bedroom. At this moment there was a commotion at the door. A man over 1.9 meters tall walked in. He wore a martial arts suit that was light white with crimson interspersed in it. It was made of a special material, and as he walked, it revealed his masculine and powerful lines. His sideburns were combed up into a bun commonly seen in ancient martial artists. His facial features weren't exactly handsome, but he had the air of a man who looked down on everything. He was the chief disciple of the Yanzhao League, a martial artist from the generation of Empress Luo, Ning Zitong, the 44-year-old Dong Baxian. Before the era of the Absolute Duo, he had received 4 titles. 2 were Challenger, 1 was Grandmaster, and 1 was Supreme Class. He was known as the Warrior King, and was a highly anticipated mighty one. Unfortunately, he was born at the wrong time and met the Warrior Sage and the Dragon King. A few years later, when Lu Qing was in his first year of university, he only received 1 Grandmaster title. However, he seemed to have gradually adjusted his mentality and walked out of the shadows. In the past 2 years, he had made further progress and regained his glory. He had received 2 titles in a row, the Warrior Sage last year and the Kirin last month. He had a spirit that didn't allow the Dragon King and Warrior Sage to monopolize the limelight. He had become one of the other martial artists who had received the most titles during the era of the Absolute Twins. Unlike the stern and dignified Dragon King, Dong Baxian had a smile on his face. From time to time, he would chat cheerfully with the physical invulnerability mighty one beside him. They were all members of the Yanzhao League. They were the beautiful first Pin Lin Shuyao who liked to imitate famous figures from the Wei and Jin dynasties, the mighty one who Dong Baxian said would be a title holder in the future, the 29-year-old second Pin Wang Ke, and the third Pin Hu Shubai who had been praised by Wang Ke after just a year. Retracting his gaze, Lu Qing saw the chairman of the Jiuqiu City Martial Artist Association, Li Hao, on the stage, ready to give a speech. At this moment, all the physical invulnerability mighty ones had arrived. The door slowly closed, leaving only a few media partners. After the guests gave their speeches, Li Hao, who was also the person in charge of the organizing committee, smiled and said, "This year there are 5 new physical invulnerability mighty ones. As the goal of this competition is to nurture martial arts grandmasters, I would like to select one of them to open the curtains of this competition." In the first half of the year, it was Go Wen from the Xuanwu sect and Meng Liang from the Shizhou Island. In the second half of the year it was August. Lu Cheng from the Ice God sect, Peng Liyun from the Shangqing sect, and Ren Li from the Kongtong school. This was the year with the most martial arts grandmasters in the past decade. This suggestion received a round of applause from all the mighty ones. Li Hao got the hostess to bring over a large glass bottle containing 5 small balls. Each ball had a crack in it, hiding a ball of paper with a name written on it. Not 1 in 3 but 1 in 5. The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He had a premonition that it should be him. He watched as Senior Li Hao took out a small ball, pulled out the ball of paper and unfolded it. "Longhu Club Lu Cheng," said Li Hao with a laugh. As expected. Lu Cheng smiled and shook his head. "Let's welcome the former Grandmaster Empress Luo Ning Zitong to select Lu Cheng's opponent for us," said Li Hao with open arms. Ning Zitong stood up and gracefully went up the stage. From another box she took out a ball of paper. She unfolded it and took a closer look. The corner of Ning Zitong's mouth slowly curled into a meaningful smile. This made Lu Cheng's heart skip a beat. He had a feeling that this wasn't a good draw. After a few seconds, Ning Zitong opened her mouth with a clear voice. "Wuxia Club. F***CK what an ill-fated relationship. Don't tell me he's going to fight with my senior? Or the clown?" Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. In a loose sense, Wuxia Club could be considered his sect. Hearing these 3 words, a commotion broke out in the hall. All the physical invulnerability experts started discussing in low voices. Ning Zitong paused for 2 seconds before continuing to announce, "Xan Xiaoye. Phew, that's good." Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief. She was a physical invulnerability expert from Hanqi sect of Wuxia Club. She had just made the great leap at the end of last year. However, she was definitely not to be underestimated. There had never been a physical invulnerability expert before the age of 30 in ancient times. Even now there were less than 5 of them. And she was one of them. Chapter 627. Xian Xiaoye was chosen by the Hanqi sect at the age of 12 and was accepted as a disciple. However, martial arts was only one of her hobbies. At that time she was bent on becoming a screenwriter. The next best thing would be to become a car racer. Therefore, she followed the usual routine of middle school and high school and entered the Capital Film and Television Academy. Before she graduated, she was favored and became the assistant of a famous screenwriter, helping him to complete a cliché drama. This allowed her to make great strides in her career as a screenwriter. However, the subsequent developments were not satisfactory. A few independent TV series flopped and she had a falling out with her mentor. She was almost forced to live in the basement of the capital. Only then did she remember that she was a professional ninth-pin martial artist. She had to change her job and change her mood. Perhaps because she had seen and experienced it, she focused on martial arts and was 10 times more passionate than before. At the age of 24, she barely entered the dance stage. She quit her job and returned to the Hanchi sect to train hard. At the age of 28, she surprised her teachers and fellow disciples by transforming her root pulp and becoming an inhuman. Until now, no one believed that she could make the great leap. She only reached 4th pin at the age of 30 and was close to physical invulnerability. This further proved everyone's point of view. In this environment where there was no pressure and no attention, she pasted posters of Liang Yifan all over her room. She did not give up and did not turn to enjoy life. More than a year later, in the title competition, she met her idol in the first round. Under the terrifying pressure and the threat of defeat, she shone with unprecedented brilliance and connected the heavens and earth. She lost the competition, but on the path of martial arts, Xan Xiaoya took a crucial step forward, breaking the expectations of the Hanchi sect and even the Wuxia society. This late bloomer mighty one had an interesting personality. Her favorite thing to do was to ridicule herself. For example, because of her flat chest, her Weibo nickname was Xan Family's Washboard. For example, she stood on the shoulders of her predecessors and successfully integrated some of the martial arts of the Death sect into the Ice sect, allowing some of the slower secret arts of the latter to explode with power quickly. When she was called Deadly Cold, she self-deprecated frozen dumplings. It had always been difficult to practice two supreme arts at the same time. The further one progressed, the more difficult it became. For example, certain moves of the Plague sect required a corresponding force to drive them in order to unleash their full power. However, under the premise that one mainly practiced the Wind sect or other arts, one would not be able to cultivate another force unless one did not want to transform one's root pulp and become an inhuman. Of course, there was a new method at the moment, and that was Lu Cheng's Tao of the Universe and Stars, the path of Dan formation through balance. Under such circumstances, cultivators who had 2 or 3 absolute arts but could only cultivate one of them would inevitably feel unsatisfied. Thus they began to explore other methods. They searched for similarities and connections between the cultivation methods, extracted the corresponding parts, and blended them into their own martial arts. In this regard, the Kong Tong school had made remarkable achievements. After generations of exploration, they had finally integrated some of the unique skills of the Plague sect into the Wind sect, deriving many moves that were similar to biochemical weapons. In other words, Rinli could use the Wind Empress force to unleash the hidden scent while only changing her visualization. There were many similar attempts. Techniques that were similar in nature did not necessarily need to be mixed. For example, the force of the Dark sect could allow the corresponding moves of the Death sect and the Plague sect to unleash about 80% of their power and vice versa. The Wuxia society had a nearly complete set of the Ice Divine Arts, Ice sect, and a part of the Secrets of Killing, Death sect. Since its establishment, they had been exploring ways to use the former as a base and blend the latter. After several generations of mighty ones laying the groundwork, they had begun to see results in recent years. First, it was the clown Gu Jianxi who specialized in the Death sect. With his extraordinary intuition, he blended a small portion of the Ice sect's content in reverse. Subsequently, the Spear King Huang Ku and other physical invulnerability experts created their own moves. When Xian Xiaoya was at the inhuman stage, she had come into contact with the relevant content and had many ideas. When she had made the great leap and possessed the strength, she finally mastered and perfected the blending. She lived up to her predecessor's hard work and the lethal chill lived up to its name. Various rumors about his opponent flashed across his mind. Lu Cheng tilted his head and looked towards the seats of the Wuxia society. First he saw his senior sister, Shi Yuejian, who was smiling at him. Then he saw the clown Gu Jianxi whose reputation was about to overshadow that of the Spear King. He had a hippie-like ponytail and various green tattoos on his neck and arms, including the famous clown tattoo. What left the deepest impression on Lu Cheng was his pair of eyes that were filled with arrogance, stubbornness, and unwillingness to admit defeat. According to statistics, in the past 10 years, the clown was the martial artist who had defeated the stronger martial artist the most times. On this list, Lu Cheng was also listed. However, compared to Gu Jianxi, he was still lacking. He approved and liked the media's description of his opponent. Born in the darkness, my heart is strong. Looking away, Lu Qing finally saw the lethal chill Xian Xiaoya. She looked to be in her 20s with a well-proportioned body and wheat-colored skin. When she saw her opponent looking at her, she smiled and sent him a message. "Oh, not bad." To this, Lu Qing could only smile and nod. He had nothing to say. At this moment, a small number of media outlets had already released the news. Battle between fellow disciples. Lethal chill versus ice-fire sky-shaking roar. Who is the coldest? Who is the coldest martial artist of this generation? First battle after the heavenly son of China made the great leap. In Lu Qing's fan forum, a lot of cats sent an emoji of a confused dog's head. Comparing their nicknames, if I were Lu Qing, I would definitely choose Dog Leash. Is it that bad? It has a wild sense of beauty, replied Bull Demon King with a smirk. Unparalleled Dragon King replied, covering face and sighing expression. Why don't we pool our efforts and help him come up with a better nickname? Let's not talk about this first. Both of them have just advanced and are physical invulnerability experts of the Ice Sect. Whatever Xian Xiaoya knows, my idol knows too. What Xian Xiaoya doesn't know, my idol knows too. Is this an opponent that will give him free points? Asked Brahmin happily. Unparalleled Dragon King answered seriously, not really. I heard that Xian Xiaoya's fatal chill is very powerful, and she hasn't used it many times yet. It hasn't been analyzed and deciphered by the outside world yet. Besides, it hasn't been 3 months since Lu Qing broke through. If he only trains in the Ice Sect or the Fire Sect, it won't be a problem for him to get started. If he trains in both, I suspect he still has moves he hasn't mastered. Let's not talk about these useless things. Anyway, he'll definitely win. Brahmin, you've become more mature after high school. You're not so childish anymore. Teased, Eternal Nightfall, Yan Shaoling after seeing that the result of the draw was good. Yeah, unlike a certain someone who's still doing things the same way. Brahmin began to expose Yan Shaoling's dark history. Yesterday when I dyed my hair, I actually dyed it green. That's not true. I wanted to dye it brown, but... Yan Shaoling recalled yesterday. She was at a loss as to who she was, where she was, and what she had done. Unparalleled Dragon King was shocked. This is the first time I've seen someone voluntarily dye their hair green. No problem. Forgiveness is popular this year, said Okamoto's fan. Oh no, I thought Lu Qing would definitely win, but now I'm not so sure. Anyway, I'll definitely forgive him when the time comes. Why, you guys cry out loud. I really only wanted to dye it brown, replied Yan Shaoling, feeling wronged. I just didn't look carefully when I was choosing, and the guy who dyed my hair was very handsome and gentle. I was busy peeking at him. Yeah. How can you call Chao's embarrassing action stupid? Said a lot of cats, imitating Kong Yiji's tone. For a moment, everyone was laughing loudly. The forum was filled with a cheerful atmosphere. They almost forgot that Lu Qing's first physical invulnerability battle was coming up. At the end of the banquet, some were happy and some were sad about the results of the draw. Peng Liyun and Ren Li were lucky enough to be matched against third-pin opponents. At the end of the banquet, Lu Qing stood up and walked towards the Wuxia club. His senior sister had arrived late and didn't even greet him. Shi Yuejian was waiting in her seat. Seeing him approaching, she smiled gently and said to him, I've heard from my dad that you and Ren Li joined hands and killed 2 physical invulnerability experts. This isn't your first physical invulnerability battle, so don't worry about you. She had a peaceful temperament. Although she loved martial arts, she didn't like to compete with others, let alone sharpen herself in life-or-death battles. So far, she hadn't killed anyone. This might be the reason why she was stuck at third pin. As for the martial arts fanatic, Wuxia, she wasn't very talented. She only managed to make the great leap by relying on the word fanatic. After 4 years, she finally touched the edge of second pin. That's because the right time, place and people were there, Lu Qing replied humbly. After exchanging a few pleasantries with him, Shi Yuejian reminded him seriously, you must be careful of Xiaoya's fatal chill. Senior sister's tone sounds like the fatal chill is more powerful than I expected? Lu Qing nodded seriously and said, thank you for your advice, senior sister. After parting ways, he returned to the hotel with the rest of the Longhu club. He entered the room and chatted with Yan Zhika, who occasionally took time out during class, about the opening battle tomorrow afternoon. How was it? Are you confident? Yan Zhika knew that Lu Qing must have been watching Xian Xiaoya's battle videos from the past year. In short, I'll give it my all. Lu Qing expressed his thoughts. He even looked up Xian Xiaoya's battle videos from the past few years, trying to determine the situation of the fatal chill from the fusion of the ice sect and death sect techniques. Yeah. Nodding like a chick pecking at rice, Yenjika added, I'm so angry. Why is the battle in the afternoon? I can't even watch it. It's the middle of the night. It's fine. It's not like you'll be eliminated if you lose. Besides, she has surprises, so do I. Lu Qing comforted his wife. All right. Pointing at her finger's expression, Yenjika replied. The next afternoon, 2:55 p.m., Connecticut time, 1:55 a.m. A sharp sound rang and Yenjika was jolted awake from her dream. She was stunned for a few seconds before realizing what time it was. She turned off the alarm on her phone, rubbed her face and ran to the bathroom with unsteady steps. She splashed her face with cold water and was completely awake. Taking out her tablet, she leaned against the pillow, found the live streaming website and started buffering. After a while, she saw the battlefield on Jianghu Island, the spectators on the surrounding ships, and Lu Qing in his navy blue martial arts suit, standing opposite Xan Xiaoya. Ladies and gentlemen, the opening match of this year's master competition is about to begin. Lu Qing from Longhu Club will be facing Xan Xiaoya from Wuxia Club. They are both third-pin physical invulnerability mighty ones. As the commentator's voice drilled into her ears, Yenjika's lips curled into a smile. On the Riverheart Island, shouts of Lu Qing and Lu Qing faintly reverberated around. Pretty popular, Xan Xiaoya complimented with a smile. She was more than 30 meters away from Lu Qing, but with each other's hearing, they could hear each other clearly if they spoke a little louder. Of course, it would also be recorded clearly by the broadcast. Lu Qing was about to reply when the referee raised his right hand and waved it down. Conversation time starts now. He was a little further away and planned to walk to the edge of the battlefield. At this moment, Xan Xiaoya spoke with great interest. I heard you can withstand negative 130 degrees for quite a long time? Let's talk about it later. Lu Qing smiled and started to prepare for visualization. Xan Xiaoya watched in bewilderment until a faint purple fireball formed around her opponent and spun in an oval shape. Is this 9 rotations of 5 flames? Descent of the sun? Xan Xiaoya made an accurate judgment, but the doubts in her heart grew. Didn't they say that maintaining the 5 flames was very mentally taxing and was a huge burden on the body? Didn't they say that Longhu Club's physical invulnerability experts would only use this move in a fight where they couldn't separate from each other, so that they wouldn't waste their energy if they couldn't hit the enemy after accumulating it? Why did Lu Qing use it during conversation time? Xan Xiaoya and the audience stared blankly until 5 fireballs of light purple, golden yellow, blazing white, light blue and crimson circled around Lu Qing like satellites. They rotated in a stable and balanced manner, like gods descending upon the earth. Only then did Xan Xiaoya open her mouth in shock and confusion. You can do this. Chapter 628. Xan Xiaoya wasn't the only one who found it strange. Even the guest commentator in the live stream couldn't understand. 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the sun? Preparing during the conversation can indeed avoid Xan Xiaoya's interference. But the problem is, how long has it been? He still has to work hard to maintain it for another 2 minutes. The burden of 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the sun isn't small. And once the fight starts, Xan Xiaoya, who is mentally prepared, can totally use a long-range attack strategy. At that time, won't Lu Qing be caught unprepared? Won't he waste so much mental strength and Emperor Yin force? Lu Qing did have a talent and stamina. When others were using 5 or 6 consecutive bursts, he could go beyond 10 consecutive bursts. Could it be that after making the great leap and reaching physical invulnerability, his talent was shifted to mental strength? Otherwise, there's no way to explain his choice. Yenjika's smile deepened as she listened to the commentator's exclamations and analysis from various angles. Her dimples became more prominent, making her look sweet and beautiful. The profundity of my grand starry sky path isn't something mediocre people like you can understand. At the bow of a luxurious cruise ship, Empress Luo was looking at the battlefield on Riverheart Island. She laughed, half surprised and half exclaiming. He just reached physical invulnerability and he's already stirring up trouble. This isn't like the Dragon King. He reminds me of the warrior sage. Long Zhen and Guijie didn't reply. Instead, they stared at the 5 colored fireballs circling around Lu Qing. They seemed to have their own orbits. Although they seemed to be flying around randomly, there was a hidden pattern to them. It was as if they could maintain their orbits on their own without the guidance of their mental strength. Others might not be able to see this, but they, who had studied the 9 rotations of 5 flames, descent of the sun for many years, keenly sensed the difference. When Long Jin used it, he had to control it forcefully with his mental strength. But Lu Qing was doing it effortlessly. It was as though the 5 flames themselves were escorting him and following him without any additional worry. To use a less accurate analogy, when he used 9 rotations of 5 flames, descent of the sun, it was like flying a kite or a hydrogen balloon. He had to hold on to the string in order to make them flutter in the wind. Lu Qing, on the other hand, was like releasing 5 satellites with himself as the core. Through natural connections, he made them circle in predetermined orbits repeatedly. Not simple. Long Jin sighed to himself. He believed that since Lu Qing dared to do so, he must have a strong backing. This 9 rotations of 5 flames, descent of the sun, could be maintained for a long time with low consumption. In the Longhu Club and Lu Cheng's fan forums, similar exclamations were heard one after another. Awesome! Brahman said with a starry-eyed pose. In her heart, her idol at this moment was like an immortal god descending step by step from the heavens. The traces left behind by the faint purple, golden, and other 5-colored fireballs outlined a robe that did not belong to the mortal world. The sacred, powerful, dignified, and lofty feelings entered her heart. Eternal Nightfall Yen Shaoling was the same. While she was busy taking screenshots, she said, salivating expression, the screen is blurry. Let me lick it. Look at your love-struck, no infatuated look. Don't tell anyone that you know me. Unparalleled Dragon King replied with a look of disdain. As a martial arts forum, shouldn't we be discussing whether Lu Qing has developed a new posture? No, a new move or a new Dharma access that reduces the consumption of 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the sun? What's the point of discussing whether he's handsome or not? Although this was indeed cool, who knew how many children would dream of martial arts? Anyway, I don't believe Lu Qing is deliberately acting cool, a plumber eating mushrooms said. As a heavenly son of the era, he must be a little different. Eyes shining expression, Nye Chichi said. Amidst the doubts and discussions of the audience, Xian Xiaoya had already formed her ice heart. She restrained her emotions and raised her hand. Referee, he's cheating? Seeing the corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitch, Xian Xiaoya immediately smiled and said, just kidding. Livening up the atmosphere. As she spoke, her eyes deepened and her aura was released. The temperature within a radius of dozens of meters dropped sharply, as though the crisp autumn weather had turned into a harsh winter. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew. It was neither too strong nor too strong. It only made the dead leaves on the ground spin and dance. However, there was an indescribable coldness in it. It was different from other coldness. It was like a hospital morgue. In the strong cold, there was a hidden chill that made people unconsciously timid, unconsciously fearful, and unconsciously let their imagination run wild. This was a coldness that was mixed with the will of death. This was both a battle of aura and mental oppression. However, at that moment, Xian Xiaoya felt as though Lu Qing was a vast expanse of darkness. It was cold, vast, and empty. All the chilly winds and chilliness blew into it and dissipated on their own. They couldn't even cause a ripple. It was like the end of everything, an eternal death. Xian Xiaoya seemed to have grasped something. But at that moment, the referee shouted from afar, "Begin!" The official match of the master competition was thus unveiled. Bam! Xian Xiaoya spun on the spot and bent her back, stirring up a strong wind that seemed to come from the polar regions. The goose feathers in the wind were large and dense, blocking one's vision, interfering with one's hearing and reducing the range of one's mental senses. Wind and snow were good at disorienting one's tracks. Drones recorded the scene and presented it to the audience through various means. With the help of modern technology, Xian Xiaoya's figure could be vaguely seen in the wind and snow. Sometimes she was in the west, sometimes she was in the east, sometimes she was in the hills, sometimes she was on the side. She was constantly moving at high speed, not giving Lu Qing a chance to approach. With the 5 flames at hand, only an idiot would go head-on with her. Bam! 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 The sound of her movements was drowned out by the strong wind. After changing directions a few times, Xian Xiaoya formed a sword with her fingers and pointed forward. A crystalline, cold light shot towards Lu Qing at supersonic speed. Ice Spirit Holy Light, a blade at close range and an arrow at long range. Swoosh! 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 Xian Xiaoya didn't move her upper body. With her footwork, she shot out several dreamy, cold lights in the wind and snow, forming an inescapable net that enveloped Lu Qing. In her opinion, even if it couldn't hurt her opponent, it could affect the fireballs around him, causing them to lose their balance and explode. Lu Qing, who had been observing from the same spot, finally moved. He took a step to the side, stirring up a strong wind that avoided most of the ice spirit holy light. Only a few were blown off course. At the same time, above his left shoulder, the crimson fireball deviated from its trajectory and flew out, hitting the cold lights heading straight for him. Boom! The flames exploded, shattering the ice spirit holy light. Transparent shards fell, reflecting the crimson light and blossoming in rainbow colors. It was so beautiful it was like a dream. Following that, the faint purple fireball hovering above Lu Cheng's head whizzed out, piercing through the wind and snow. Following the cold lights, it smashed towards Xan Xiaoya. Xan Xiaoya knew that in a normal fight, the fire sect's flying flame meteor, golden godly flames, and Lord Monarch's purple flames, all had the ability to create fireballs to bombard the opponent. Her opponent wouldn't be lacking in long-range attacks, but she never expected that he would use the 5 flames he had condensed as cannonballs. Wasn't that too extravagant? Her heart sank and the hairs on her back stood on end. Xan Xiaoya forced herself to straighten her knees, twist her back, and used the force of the wind to swing a dozen meters away. Rumble. Where she had been, goose feathers dissipated, the wind stopped, and the island trembled. An obvious crater appeared on the ground, with balls of flames burning in all directions. The shockwave from the explosion scraped past her body, shedding a layer of ice crystals. This was Emperor Yen Force's meteor derived from Lord Emperor's purple flame. In terms of attack power, it was definitely one of the top 3 moves of its kind. The reason why 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the Sun was the fire sect's trump card was because it applied and deepened the content of the previous moves and the foundation they had learned. It also had a unique explosive technique. Among them, the Crimson Fireball was derived from the original Zhu Rong force, while the hovering and launching technique was derived from the 4th move, Flying Flame Meteor. It was the weakest and didn't have any special features, but it was the fastest to condense and consume the least energy. The Incandescent Fireball was the upgraded version of the Crimson Fireball. It was hotter and more powerful, and at the same time, it had the heaviness of Emperor Yen and the ease of control of Fire Virtue, but only a little. The Pale Blue Fireball was the mutated version of the Incandescent Fireball. It was hotter, but its explosive power was weaker and it mainly burned. The Golden Fireball was based on Fire Virtue Force and was condensed through the technique of Golden Godly Flames. Its explosive power was strong, but it wasn't outstanding in terms of temperature and burning power. However, it could be controlled after launch. In other words, once a martial artist mastered it well, he could make it change direction twice or even thrice within a certain range. The Pale Purple Fireball was derived from Emperor Yen Force and Lord Emperor's Purple Flame. Heat and heaviness were its 2 main characteristics. Once launched, it was like a bomb loaded with high explosives. In the hands of a physical invulnerability expert like the Dragon King, it would make the enemy feel like they were attracted by a magnet, making it difficult for them to move in front of the Purple Fireball. The latter 2 were extremely taxing and burdensome to the body and mind. If they were increased in number, the 5 flames would easily lose balance. In the midst of the explosion, Xan Xiaoya saw Lu Qing from the corner of her eye. She saw him launch the golden fireball that was hovering around him. That wasn't the key. The key was that he had effortlessly condensed new crimson and pale purple fireballs. Is there an end to this? Xan Xiaoya took a step forward, lowered her head, and lunged forward to prevent Lu Cheng's golden fire virtue ball from changing direction a second time. However, she didn't know that Lu Cheng, whose foundation was Emperor Yen, had only grasped the relevant techniques and hadn't started learning them yet. Boom. The golden flames spread out and dispersed in all directions, leaving behind another crater. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Xan Xiaoya used mesmerizing steps and responded with ice spirit holy light. Sword chi crisscrossed in the air as cold light flashed. Boom. 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 The crimson, pale blue, blazing white, golden and pale purple fireballs that were hovering around Lu Qing shot out one after another. They quickly condensed and exploded, clearing up the brutal snowstorm and leaving craters all over the ground. The audience had seen countless long-range battles between physical invulnerability experts, but none had lasted as long as this one. For a physical invulnerability expert, long-range attacks consumed more energy than close-range attacks. The latter was the best way to go, with the former as support. Otherwise, the landlord wouldn't have any extra food. This is like a battle between immortals and novels. No, a sword immortal versus the leader of the 5 Fireballs Divine Sect. Commented Pig Riding Knight in the Longhu Club forum. I think if Lu Cheng were to transform his 5 flames into different colored dragons, I'd probably prostrate myself on the ground and call him a god. That would be cool. Snickered rode to the arena. Can't help it. The 5 fireballs divine sect is descended from the Dragon King. Replied Invincible Punch. Boom. 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 Xian Xiaoya was affected by the aftermath of the explosion. Her hair was disheveled and her face was covered in dust. Her Ice Sect secret arts, which were a mix of Death Sect techniques, couldn't seem to find a use for them. This kind of exchange made her feel like she was fighting a tank with 5 turrets with a rifle. The firepower, suppressive power, and coverage were completely incomparable. Even the advantage of quick firing and quick succession was made up for by Lu Cheng's 5 fires, which he had prepared in advance. He switched between them in an orderly manner and used them one after another. This can't go on. This guy is practically a human turret with multiple turrets. Xian Xiaoya turned around and dodged the explosion. While complaining, she changed her strategy. Whoosh. The sound of the wind around her suddenly turned harsh and gloomy. The falling snow froze into ice crystals. Xian Xiaoya's figure suddenly dimmed. She was blurry and indistinct like an illusion. The phantoms split, and with the help of the environment, they appeared in all directions. A dozen or so Xian Xiaoya floated towards Lu Cheng like ghosts walking in the cold night. This was an illusion movement technique, ghostly walks on a cold night, which she had created by combining the characteristics of Death Sect and ghosts. It was based on the second move of the Ice Sect, mesmerizing snow steps. After testing, it could effectively fool the enemy heart-freezing move until it was within 2 meters of Lu Cheng. At this distance, even if he could detect and distinguish the real from the fake, he wouldn't be able to react in time. Whoosh. At this moment, Lu Cheng took a step forward and appeared in front of her in the blink of an eye. All the illusions and disturbances seemed to have no effect in his eyes. His sense of danger was limited to this area. Xian Xiaoya's eyes widened. Lu Cheng stretched his back expressionlessly, shook his right arm and swung it down. The blazing white, golden, light blue, crimson, and faint purple flames behind him circled at high speed and came crashing down in the same direction. 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the sun. At this critical moment, Xian Xiaoya's feet suddenly turned soft and the soil turned into a swamp. Her skin was grayish-white, as though she had turned into a dead person. As though she had been prepared, she had formed an everlasting ice wall to protect herself. In an instant, Xian Xiaoya sank into the ground and the swamp solidified once more. A blazing white light flashed past. The spectators on the cruise ship far away from the island instinctively closed their eyes. They were so agitated that tears flowed out. Boom. The ground shook and a mushroom cloud rose. Violent winds swept away the surrounding leaves and dirt. The exaggerated crater burned with crimson flames that swept outwards. With a crisp bang, the ground behind Lu Cheng cracked open. Xian Xiaoya bounced out, formed a sword with her fingers and pointed at the back of her opponent. The ice wall that covered her body had shattered. Her skin was cracked and flipped, but there wasn't a trace of blood. Instead, there was a dark red trickle at the corner of her mouth that slowly dripped down. Everything that had happened was within Xian Xiaoya's expectations. She knew very well that Lu Cheng had the supernatural ability to deflect curses and predict danger before he reached the physical invulnerability stage. She believed that after he made the great leap, he would be even more powerful in this aspect. Therefore, she didn't expect that the hallucination-type ghost walks on a cold night would be able to fool his intuition. She had long secretly prepared the Death Sect's burying technique and formed the eternal ice wall in time to exhaust the enemy's 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the sun. Even so, under the terrifying power of 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the sun, she was severely shaken. Her injuries weren't serious, but there were many residual negative effects. This kind of attack power was truly enough to ascend the heavens and descend to the netherworld. As Xian Xiaoya's thoughts flashed, shadows appeared under her opponent's feet. Like air shackles or wild vines, they entangled, hooked, and pulled Lu Cheng's legs. At the same time, Xian Xiaoya's fingertips, which had long completed her visualization, turned greenish-black from the extreme cold. Lu Cheng hadn't expected his opponent to have the decisiveness and precision to win in such a dangerous situation. As a result, he couldn't react in time and was temporarily restrained. All he could do was take Xian Xiaoya's finger attack head-on. His heart was as cold as before. He didn't panic. As thoughts flashed through his mind, he twisted his waist and leaned to one side. His right arm was covered in a layer of ice crystals as he swung it in the opposite direction. Poof! Xan Xiaoya tapped with her finger and used the force to swing back and change her position. Lu Qing felt a chill invade his body, assimilating with the ice wall and penetrating his flesh. In an instant he lost all feeling in his right arm and forearm. It was as though he had been frozen to the point of numbness or necrosis. This shocked him. As long as it didn't affect one's thoughts or the body's ability to withstand extreme cold, the vigorous physical invulnerability qi and blood in one's body would be able to resist and neutralize most of the effects. It required continuous accumulation before it could take effect. Otherwise, it could only form a layer of ice on the outside to restrict movement. But now, in just an instant, one of his arms was frozen stiff. Just as senior sister had said, the fatal chill was even more powerful than he had expected. As Xian Xiaoya shifted her position, Lu Qing wasn't surprised or hesitant. He retracted his qi and blood and retracted the fatal chill, dispelling the negative effects to a certain extent and preventing it from invading his shoulder. Even so, his right arm, forearm and palm were still deeply numb and stiff. For a moment he couldn't move freely. Bam! Lu Qing's Dan Qi erupted and poured into his legs. He forcefully tore off the arms of the ghosts and broke free from their restraints. At this moment, Xan Xiaoya, who was very confident in the fatal chill, moved to his right again. She clenched her fist and threw a punch, surrounded by faint light. She wanted to take advantage of Lu Qing's paralyzed right arm to gain the upper hand. Then she would use the fatal chill consecutively to clinch victory. But at this moment Lu Qing didn't panic at all. With a shake of his right shoulder, the arm that had been frozen into a stone, turned into a weapon and swung out. His movements were smooth and natural, as if he had gone through a lot of practice. Xian Xiaoya would never have guessed that he had trained hard to fight when he lost control of his arms and legs. Compared to that, this was nothing. Bam! With a dull thud, the two figures separated. Under Xian Xiaoya's frosty gaze, which masked her astonishment, Lu Qing took a step forward. He even gathered his force and drew the fighting formula. His body instantly grew taller. His muscles tightened around his martial arts suit, outlining the contours of his body. His greenish-black skin made him look more like a monster disguised as a human. Boom! He swung his fist down with a loud explosive sound, causing Xian Xiaoya's arm to tremble slightly. She was forced to take a few steps back, and the impact caused her organs to churn even more violently. The residual effects of the descent of the sun from before were all unleashed. Faced with Lu Qing's pressure, Xian Xiaoya gathered her force concentration and visualized. Her fist was covered in white frost as she threw out an ice spirit. Lu Qing didn't care. He continued to use the fighting formula and the eruption of his Dan force. He transformed into a giant and punched with his left fist. Bam! Xian Xiaoya's organs churned even more violently. Her ears buzzed. As she retreated, she created several deep craters. Lu Qing didn't care that his left fist and left arm were frozen. He gathered his force concentration again and shifted his stars to the fighting formula again. Bam! 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 After a few consecutive blows, Xian Xiaoya was dizzy. Her arms were trembling and she couldn't exert strength. At this point, Lu Qing, who had reached the limit of his fighting formula, switched to using pure Dan force. After the first punch, a crimson aura formed around him and circled him. Boom! The punch and fireball landed at the same time. Xian Xiaoya was sent flying by the explosion. She caught her breath in midair and flipped like a sparrow hawk. Riding the wind, she landed steadily to the side. She was about to use force concentration to subdue the effects when she saw Lu Qing charging at her without giving her a chance to recuperate. Crimson aura formed around him again, followed by a blazing white aura, then a faint blue aura. Again. Xian Xiaoya sucked in a breath of cold air. She examined her body, straightened her back and swung back. She raised her right hand and shouted, "I surrender." The consequences of being hit by 9 rotations of 5 flames again would be unthinkable. Chapter 629. Hearing Xian Xiaoya admit defeat, the host in the live broadcast room exclaimed before the referee could announce the result. Able to attack from afar, close range, and sustain for a long period of time. Lu Qing's 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the sun is truly insane. I think all the physical invulnerability experts watching this match are thinking of ways to counter this move. This is also the specialty of modern martial arts. Once you come up with a new move, new martial arts, or new Dharma access, it will quickly attract the attention of others and be analyzed by others. There's no such thing as a single move dominating the world. It's not like ancient times where a trump card could be used for many years. Even if an enemy who has not been killed before wanted to spread the news, Who knows how many years it would take for them to achieve their goal. Alright, let's go off topic. The referee announces that Lu Cheng has won the match. His first battle as a physical invulnerability expert got off to a good start. Moreover, his opponent is Xian Xiaoye, who can be considered one of the best among the third pin fighters, the one who created the lethal chill. He deserves to be called the heavenly son of the era. Back then, Wisdom King, Ji Hai only appeared in public for the first time half a year after making the Great Leap. He was already familiar with the Great Light Scripture, Womb Realm and Vajra Realm martial arts. He also encountered several outstanding first pin and second pin fighters consecutively and suffered a few defeats. This made us unable to truly understand the strength of the heavenly son of the era after making the Great Leap. Now Lu Cheng has proven this point. More importantly, I noticed that in the previous battle, other than that one defensive move, he didn't use any of the Ice Sect's unique skills. The legendary 9 syllables also seem to have only used the word, fighting. In other words, he still has many moves and changes that have yet to be revealed. Fellow physical invulnerability experts and the various forces other than Longhu, don't you feel like the wolf is coming? Of course, we don't have to worry about this in the short term. But what about in 2 or 3 years? As the saying goes, the new generation will always surpass the old. Let's look forward to the era of the 4 heavenly sons of the era. You're bragging too much. Eternal Nightfall, Yin Shaoling was unusually objective. Then she added another sentence in the forum, but I like it. Again. I like how shameless you are. Nye Chi said with an emoji of patting a dog's head. Bull Demon King said, 5 fireballs is so cool. The best way to show off in front of girls? I'm already drunk, Brahmin replied cheerfully. Because she had become familiar with Yen Zhika in private, she was too embarrassed to call him Lu Cheng, so she changed the way she addressed him. It's too late because there's no Luohan Kung Fu in slumber. There's no Kung Fu that can be practiced while lying down. You're getting better at self-deprecating? Okamoto's fan couldn't find anything to criticize. Let's talk about the match just now. I think Senior has a chance to enter the top 32 after the double elimination match. Yen Shaoling changed the topic and sent a cheerful emoji. Yeah, with the strength he showed, as long as his luck isn't too bad, he'll have a high chance of winning if he encounters a first pin one after another. Unparalleled Dragon King agreed. Besides, there are still 16 Inhumans. The chances of getting them in the second round won't be too low. Alright. Come on veterans. Let's go. Brahmin sent a firecracker emoji. Yen Shaoling was stunned. Brahmin, you've become dirty too. I've had a boyfriend for half a year, unlike you who's been single for thousands of years. Brahmin replied directly. Alright, I'm not a human anymore. Pouting sadly expression, Yen Shaoling replied. I'm a dog. That hurts, bro. Unparalleled Dragon King sent a crying face emoji. Don't stop me. I'm going to die for 5 minutes. He had been single for a long time ever since he returned from studying abroad and stayed at home. Once Unparalleled Dragon King said that, the topic of the forum changed. There were single dogs complaining, bragging, and FFF fans calling for heresy. On the deck of a cruise ship north of River Heart Island, Peng Liyun watched the entire match with his hands in his pockets. He was in a trance as he muttered to himself, he really has something new every time. Maybe it was because of the strong pressure from Lu Cheng that he kept moving forward without slacking. Even though he had achieved physical invulnerability, he didn't dare to slack off. As he thought about it, Peng Liyun's eyes became unfocused and his thoughts drifted. He seemed to be thinking deeply about how to break Lu Cheng's version of 9 rotations of 5 flames. Beside him was an ergonomic chair, the kind that looked very elastic and comfortable. On it sat a young man who looked to be in his mid-20s. He was wearing a white robe, had a delicate face, and had a scholarly temperament. His black hair was tied into a Taoist bun. Leaning against the back of the chair, he narrowed his eyes and sized up River Heart Island. He looked like he was about to fall asleep. He was Qian Donglu of the Shangqing sect, who had won the most titles since the start of the professional competition. In July of this year he had won back the title of Warrior Sage from Dong Baxian. They really are of the same origin. Qian Donglu chuckled. He picked up a pair of sunglasses and put them on. He didn't seem to be looking forward to the next few matches, so he decided to sunbathe and take an afternoon nap. Just as the physical invulnerability mighty ones were thinking about how to deal with the situation, Lu Cheng returned to the cruise ship where the Longhu Club was after enjoying the cheers of the audience. When he reached the edge of River Heart Island, he didn't take a small boat. Instead he stepped on the water. The waves on the water stopped and a layer of ice formed. Lu Qing stood steadily. Every step he took was supported by a crystalline foot. He approached the cruise ship in a carefree manner. Then, with a leap, he landed on the deck without a single drop of water on him. This brought even more enthusiastic cheers from the audience. Stepping on the water like it was flat ground was the first expectation many people had for martial arts. "There's a reporter waiting to interview you." Ning Zitong pointed at the camera team near the cabin door. She wasn't in a hurry to ask about the 9 rotations of 5 flames. "All right." Lu Qing reached out and took the phone from Amen. Just as the screen lit up, he saw a message from Yen Zhika. She sent a snickering expression. "I'm impressed. Impressive. 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 You're making our Grand Starry Sky sect strong. Why aren't you sleeping yet?" Lu Qing subconsciously wanted to reply like this. However, after he typed, he changed it to a confused expression. "I'm flattered." Yen Zhika replied proudly. Then she added, "Now I can sleep in peace." The corner of Lu Qing's mouth lifted. He quickly replied, "Hurry up." He locked the phone and passed it to Amen. Then he walked to the cabin door and accepted the interview. "I'm Li Su, a reporter from Satellite TV Sports." The female reporter, who was wearing a white shirt, pencil pants and high heels, smiled and said, "We have more than 3 questions today." "I'm a little scared," Lu Qing replied half-jokingly. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Li Su, who had already prepared the outline of the interview, said confidently, "First of all, congratulations on winning your first battle as a physical invulnerability expert. Your performance has convinced everyone and left all those who doubted you speechless. However, we're all curious about one thing. Your 9 rotations of 5 flames seems to consume less energy than normal. How long can it last?" "There's nothing to hide. Everyone knows that I have 2 opposing supernatural abilities, ice and fire. Since I was a professional 9th pin fighter, I've been constantly searching for a way to unify them. Later, with the help of the balanced rotation and natural phenomena, I found my own way. It's because of this balanced rotation that I can use other methods to maintain the 5 flames. The burden is indeed very small." Lu Qing spoke calmly and gave a simple presentation of his special martial arts. Li Su didn't expect him to answer so clearly. After a long while, she praised sincerely, "You're not stingy and you're willing to share the path you created. This is the magnanimity of a grandmaster. I'm still young and full of drive. I'm not afraid that others will catch up with me using this method." Lu Qing chuckled. "This is a sign of strong confidence in yourself." Li Su praised again. Then she asked jokingly, "What about when you're old?" Lu Qing's expression was calm. He chuckled softly and said, "If there are others who benefit from this, they'll definitely respect me more when they face me. Isn't that good? You're open-minded and magnanimous." Li Su nodded with great interest. "Lu Qing, I feel that you're much calmer and more mature than before. People will always grow up slowly. Although in my heart, I've always been the young man who chased after his dreams." Lu Qing laughed at himself. Li Su thought for a while and asked again, "What on earth did you experience in the past year? How could you make the great leap so quickly and have such a good mentality?" "I said at that press conference that the previous injury had a great tempering effect on me. When the sequela was at its worst, I really considered quitting the martial arts circle. I really endured the torment every day, but I still didn't want to give up and leave. During this process, I gradually recognized myself and found the strength that came from my heart. When I finally walked out, everything fell into place. Well, I want to thank my family for their understanding and support." Lu Qing said unhurriedly, "Without you, I wouldn't have been able to make it this far." "Only thank your family? I heard that you have a girlfriend." Li Su smiled mischievously. She was quite touched by Lu Qing's answer. She seemed to be able to understand the torment, hesitation, and loss of this heavenly son. Lu Qing explained seriously, "In my heart, she's my family." "Wow, so sweet." Li Su said amusedly, "Next question. During the interview, washing board of the Xan family posted on Weibo, terrible. I finally understand what it means to be suppressed by fire. What it means to be beaten silly. P.S. Please recommend me." Chapter 630. Like style like fans. Not only did washing board of the Xian family not attract sympathy, but it also created a joyful atmosphere. Don't cry, stand up. We are all flat-chested. Why is someone stronger than you? Think about it. Apart from Lu Qing, the current Dragon King is probably the only one who can do such a thing. However, the current Dragon King doesn't care about such methods anymore. I've typed so many words just to tell you that you've gone against the trend recently and have a bad character. What does it feel like to be stunned? Go away. You are not my idol anymore. Lu Qing, who was about to post a Weibo post to commemorate his first physical invulnerability battle, challenge tournament, started reading the comments with great interest. After reading all of them, he had forgotten his previous feelings and could only complain casually. To be honest, a nickname like 5 Fireball Sect Leader or Multi-Turret Holy Object is 10,000 times better than Sky-Shaking Ice Fire Roar. Many cats, was the first to reply. So you want to be called 5 Fireball Sky-Shaking Roar or Multi-Turret Roar? Stop struggling. When it comes to nicknames there is no worst. Be careful, you will be worse than Roar in the future. Unparalleled Dragon King reminded him based on the bloody history of many senior martial artists. Seeing his fans coming up with weird nicknames for him, Lu Qing had the urge to delete his Weibo post. Out of sight, out of mind, out of mind, out of mind. He muttered silently a few times, opened the app and locked the phone screen. If I continue reading, I will laugh myself. Lu Qing retracted his gaze and turned to River Heart Island to watch the next match. He didn't put in so much effort in every match. He took some time to take an afternoon nap to refresh himself. After all, there would be replays on the internet. After dinner, he didn't go to Jianghu Stadium to watch the match at night. Instead, he returned to the hotel and chatted with Jianghu while watching the match on the big screen TV. The previous interview had been made into a program and was played during the break. Returning from the tribulation and rising from the ashes. This is my view of Lu Qing making the great leap. A sword is sharpened by grinding, and the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. Li Su concluded. Compared to experts who had a smooth sailing life, Lu Qing, who had experienced ups and downs, was more popular among ordinary people. They seemed to have found a resonance with him. The next day, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and the Wisdom King Zhi Hai went to battle one after another. All of them won, and the name of the 4 heavenly prides became even more popular. In the first round of the competition, there was no lack of classic battles where the weak won against the strong. It was not strange for a rank 3 to win against a rank 2. However, in the neutral arena without the advantage of the environment, it was almost impossible for them to defeat a rank 1. After the first round of battles 2 days ago, the organizing committee drew lots online and did not hold a special banquet. Lu Qing sat cross-legged on the bed and made a 50-cent bet with his little fairy. He felt that he would meet a strong opponent who was much stronger than him in this round. Jianghu, on the other hand, thought that they would be at the same level, maybe stronger or weaker. The drawing of lots proceeded as planned. Lu Qing saw his senior sister meet the Sword King, Wuxia, the head of Shushan study, and saw Peng Liyun meet Wang Xiaoshuang, a disciple of Daxing Temple. Lu Qing had heard of this man's deeds long ago. He had awakened a powerful supernatural ability when he was young. Once he was agitated, he could easily create fires. At first, his parents did not know why there were so many fires in the surroundings. When they understood, they sent him to the famous Daxing Temple to cultivate his mind and Zen to control his supernatural ability. Because of his talent, Wang Xiaoshuang had always been a classic example of someone whose combat strength was greater than his level. His flaming dragon fist was famous in the north and south. When he was only a rank 4, he could hold his own against a physical invulnerability mighty 1 for a long time. He had made the great leap 2 years ago. Last year, he had mastered the Dharma Guardian Azure Fire of the Womb Storage Sect and many parts of the Great Light Scripture of Buddha. This year's battle results were outstanding. Because it was not enough for the statistics year, he was not promoted. However, no one would think that he was just a rank 3. Taoist luck is just SOSO. Lu Qing complained. Then he heard his name. Longhu Club Lu Qing. Restraining his thoughts, he watched seriously as the ball was taken out and the paper was unfolded. The deputy director of Jiuqiu City Martial Arts Association flipped the paper and announced, Yanzhao League Wang Ke. Wang Ke. This is a genuine second pin fighter. Lu Qing's mind raced as he thought of all kinds of information about the other party. This physical invulnerability expert was a young mighty 1 personally trained by Qirandong Baxian. He was humble and kept a low profile. In the beginning, he did not stand out and remained in the team with hopes of making the great leap. However, he was not one of the most eye-catching ones. Until the age of 27, he suddenly surpassed all of his peers in the Yanzhao League and rose to the top. After that, he received his second pin certification in just 1 year. He had just turned 29. Because of his personality and style, he was usually ignored by the media and treated lightly. It was only when Dong Baxin received the title of Warrior Sage last year that he was pushed to the forefront of the storm. At that time, the new warrior sage, who had always been arrogant, said, "I don't envy Daxing Temple for having Wisdom King, Shangqing Sect for having Peng Liyun, or Kongtong School for having Ren Li, because our Yanzhao League has Wang Quebec. Among all the young people I have seen, he is the one who is most suited for martial arts. He doesn't have any primitive supernatural ability or outstanding talent, but he has enough shocking talent. He has the ability to turn something rotten into something magical. He has an extraordinary understanding of various martial arts and techniques, and he is good at grasping the key points in complicated situations. You may think that the battles he participates in are often ordinary, but that is because he makes the situation simple and easy to win. Within 5 years, believe me, he will definitely receive the title within 5 years. Some martial artists shine brightly when they are still inexperienced, while some martial artists get better as they age." Such comments caused an uproar among the public. In an instant there were differing opinions. Many mocked Dong Baxin for always boasting and getting carried away after receiving the title of warrior sage and spouting nonsense. However, it was also because of this that many critics with deep martial arts foundations found Wang Kei's battle videos over the years and re-evaluated this young mighty one. In the end, they all gave similar comments. Potential of a master. Lifting heavy weights as though they are light. No matter how ordinary the martial arts in his hands, they can shine with unprecedented brilliance. This is not only because of his own realm. Such praises made Wang Kei famous. If it wasn't for the fact that Lu Qing, Peng Liyun and Ren Li were too dazzling this year, he might have received even more attention. This opponent isn't simple. Lu Qing nodded his head slightly. His heart was filled with respect. At this moment, Yan Zhika sent a message. Hands spread. Who asked you not to trust my instincts? I was wrong. Ko Qian's words are straight and hit the nail on the head. Lu Qing revealed a smile and sent a red packet of 50 cents. Yan Zhika sent an emoji of touching her hair proudly. Take the red packet back. Let's talk about 50 cents. Tell me, what's your impression of Wang Kei? Lu Qing sent an emoji of wiping cold sweat. Other than that incident, I haven't really watched Wang Kei's matches. Tonight and tomorrow I'll have to cram for it. As for the matter of collecting videos of his opponents, he didn't have to worry about it. The Longhu Club had its own specialized personnel to do this. While the two of them were chatting, Ren Li's opponent was confirmed. It was an inhuman who had made it into the main competition, Zheng Shiduo of the Guanwai League. At this time last year he and Ren Li were at the same level. Now they were worlds apart. Ren Li's character is not bad. Could it be that a girl with a bad sense of direction has good luck? Lu Qing complained and Peng Liyun in the group chat. Priest, maybe the one who will treat us in the end will be Ren Li. You can't beat fate. Maybe she has a halo of good luck. To be honest, sometimes I really suspect that she has supernatural abilities in this area. Being bad with directions is the price. Peng Liyun still couldn't understand why Ren Li didn't get lost in the war-torn zones and end up in the enemy's lair. However, he had never thought about how he, who was always daydreaming, could make a name for himself in that area. Ren Li sent an emoji of biting her lips. I'm not happy at all when you say that. I really want to meet a strong opponent. Another round to wait. In the hotel where Yanzhao League was staying, Wang Kei held the remote control and stared at the television screen. After watching the lots, he stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. After pondering for a while, he lit up his phone and gave Dong Baxin a call. Hello, Master Dong. Can you help me imitate Lu Cheng's 9 rotations of 5 flames tomorrow? Wang Kei requested solemnly. Dong Baxin laughed and said, Sure. My opponent for this round isn't strong. At this moment, all the major web portals had published related news. The most eye-catching one was, Potential Master vs Future Grandmaster. Chapter 631. Once the results of the draw were out, Yanzhao League's official Weibo created a topic. #Master vs Grandmaster #come, let's discuss the outcome of this hot battle. As for the rest, other than Little Hu, it's just a win. There's nothing to say. Very quickly the replies started to pile up. If it was a year later I might be worried about Quebec. But now we can't underestimate Lu Cheng. He still has many tricks up his sleeve. For example, he should have a better grasp of the Ice Sect than the Fire Sect. After all, he's a disciple of the Ice God Sect. Upstairs, don't be too humble. 2K isn't an ordinary second pin mighty one. I bet 5 packs of spicy sticks that 2K will definitely win. I don't believe it, I don't believe it, I don't believe it. 2K is on par with everyone. He gets stronger when facing strong opponents and weaker when facing weak opponents. Lu Qing is still lacking. The young mighty ones of our Yanzhao League are definitely not weaker than others. Besides, they have the advantage of accumulation. Bring my stool over and let's wait for 2K to destroy Lu Qing's 9 rotations of 5 flames. Oh, how do you think he will do it? Shoot a laser beam from afar and destroy one with one finger? While the Yanzhao League members were discussing heatedly, the atmosphere in Lu Qing's fan forum was relatively heavy. Unparalleled Dragon King, how strong is this Wang Ke? Eternal Nightfall. Yan Xiaoling didn't watch many of Yanzhao League's matches and didn't know much about the low-key Wang Quebec. Unparalleled Dragon King replied quickly, very strong. Let's put it this way. I think he'll get a title within 5 years. He has the ability to simplify and do things as if they were light. Not everyone has this ability. In fact, most physical invulnerability experts don't have it. I'm suddenly a little nervous. I haven't been nervous about a match in a long time, said Brahmin in an old-fashioned manner. Sob sob sob, me too. Yan Xiaoling chimed in. A plumber eating mushrooms said, what are you afraid of? It's not like you'll be eliminated if you lose. It's a good thing to meet such an opponent in the first few matches of the physical invulnerability stage. I'm going to watch videos of Wang Ke's matches, replied Nye Chichi. Oh right, what kind of martial arts does Wang Ke specialize in? I've seen his videos and they're all shining, all the good names are taken by dogs asked. Unparalleled Dragon King replied with an emoji of Nike mouth. Of course it's the Yanzhao League's supreme art, the golden scripture of Donghuang, also known as the Light Sect. Daxing Temple's great light scripture has been secretly modified based on it, mixing in a lot of content. Compared to its earliest form, it's completely different now. The Yanzhao League also has the remnants of the Plague Sect, and they have incorporated many of the techniques into their own Light Sect. Anyway, calm down. Maybe Lu Qing will suffer his first defeat as a physical invulnerability expert. If he wins, it'll be a surprise. It sounds amazing. I'm getting more and more nervous. Let me tell you a real joke. Yan Xiaoling changed the topic. What kind of joke is that? Okamoto's fan was very enthusiastic. Yan Xiaoling used an emoji that was trying to hold back her laughter and said, didn't I dye my hair green before? Box, no, little gal laughs at me every day. Yesterday she even said that she would dye her hair in real linen ash for me to see. When she comes back, haha, she'll have green hair too. Are you retarded? Twitching mouth expression, said Road to the arena as he wandered over. Is this the rhythm of you forgiving each other? A plumber eating mushrooms, thumping floor laughing. Doesn't little Gao have the strength of a dance stage expert? Is that guy with the dye okay? Asked Unparalleled Dragon King worriedly. He should be fine, replied Yan Xiaoling uncertainly. The heavy atmosphere in the forum slowly dissipated, returning to its usual characteristics. The next afternoon, Ning Zitong and Long Zhen, who had drawn good lots, brought their respective assistants out to visit friends. They were having a rather leisurely time. Amin and Guijie's assistant, Wang Yueshi, sat in the open cafe next to the lobby, enjoying afternoon tea. They didn't dare to stray too far from the hotel. At first, I thought that being the personal assistant of a physical invulnerability expert would be very busy. But in the end, I've been idling for a few years. I'm not busy for more than 5 days a month, said Wang Yueshi emotionally as she stirred her coffee with a silver spoon. Amin almost burst out laughing. She smiled and said, that's what I thought in the past too. Now I've learned how to entertain myself and improve myself. The two assistants looked at each other and smiled. They turned their gazes to the elevator, thinking that their boss must be studying his opponent's video or practicing in the hotel's martial arts hall. After more than a day of pondering, Lu Qing didn't even go to watch Peng Liyun's narrow victory over Wang Xiaoshuang. Lu Qing finally had some understanding of the competition at night and raised the importance he placed on Wang Ke by another level. It's time to go. He put away his laptop, stretched his body and sent a message to Yan Zhika. She replied, sitting in a dazed expression, I realize that the match at night isn't as good as in the afternoon. In the afternoon I can sleep less and wake up in the middle of the night to watch. If it's at night, I have to listen to the lectures of the instructors and do research and discussions with them. There's no chance to slack off. The night in Jianghu was the morning in Connecticut. Lu Qing chuckled and sent distressed expression. It's okay. The result will be a win anyway. Do you still want to recover? Keep a low profile. Do you understand? Keep a low profile. Accumulate good karma. Yenjika's attention was diverted. While there's no one around, allow me to be proud for a minute. Lu Cheng continued the topic and diluted his little fairy's regret. After 10 minutes, he changed into the navy blue Longhu Club martial arts suit. He collected his emotions, opened the door and walked out of the room. Aman was already waiting outside. At 8:45 p.m., Yenjika arrived at the campus of Connecticut University when the match between him and Wang Kei started at the 50,000-seat stadium in Jianghu City. It was late autumn and the weather had turned cold. The bleak cold wind swirled the dried leaves on the ground. The girl was wearing a brownish-yellow knee-length coat. She hugged a book in front of her chest and thought of a certain someone on the other side of the ocean. She thought of the battle between the Grandmaster and Master. With a calm face, Yenjika stared at the fallen leaves. She sighed softly and walked along the picturesque scenery into the building in front of her. In the 50,000-seat stadium, lights shone down from the half-open dome, illuminating the green lawn like it was daytime. The competition field was 300 by 200, and there was a wide track paved with plastic. Its main purpose was to isolate the audience from the battle between the physical and vulnerability experts. The front of the spectator seats, which could seat at least 50,000 people, was empty. Above them was a layer of bulletproof glass and barbed wire. Every key area was guarded by armed police and security personnel with extraordinary strength. Lu Cheng and Wang Kei were in the middle. They were about 30 meters apart from each other under the lights. The lawn around them was full of potholes and tattered, as though it had been plowed by artillery fire. These were the marks left behind by the previous battles. At this moment, Lu Cheng shifted his attention to Wang Kei's appearance. His appearance was also the kind that didn't reveal anything. However, his hair was spiked back like an old man, shiny and shiny. He looked very much like a big boss in an old movie. Wang Kei was about the same height as Lu Cheng. His body proportions were slightly out of proportion. His head was big, his body was long, and his legs were short. However, at a glance there was a sense of harmony. He stood there calmly and didn't look nervous at all. He indeed had the demeanor of a master. While Lu Cheng was sizing Wang Kei up, Wang Kei was sizing him up too. He felt that Lu Cheng's demeanor was steady and neither servile nor overbearing. It was as though he wouldn't change his expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. At this moment, the referee standing between them raised his right hand and said, "Conversation time starts now." After saying this, he immediately walked to the edge of the field. He didn't want to suffer an unexpected calamity when the real battle started. In a battle between physical and vulnerability experts, the referee's role was similar to that of a host. At this moment, the two of them facing each other didn't open their mouths. A scarlet-red fireball appeared around Lu Cheng. It was circling diagonally in an elliptical orbit. It was also rotating in an orderly manner. The surface of Wang Kei's body gradually emitted a bright light that illuminated the surroundings. It was dazzling, sacred, and majestic. Those who witnessed it couldn't help but worship him. The golden scripture of Dong Huang was said to have originated from the Chu kingdom. It had a long history and was related to the era of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. It was a sacrificial technique from that era of barbarism. However, this was only what they claimed to be. A deity descended from the heavens and shone brightly. Lu Cheng actually didn't dare to blaspheme, be an enemy, or attack. He quickly formed the ice heart. While creating the 5 flames, he used his visualization to communicate with the outside world. The sky darkened. The stars in the sky set off the blazing white, golden, and faint purple around Lu Cheng. It made Wang Kei look like the sun at noon. It was so glorious in the human world. However, compared to the dark and deep starry sky, it was so insignificant. The night grew darker and the light grew brighter. Lu Cheng and Wang Kei's auras were entangled. They were constantly competing to find or create the other party's weakness. Time flew by quickly. Wang Kei suddenly laughed and praised sincerely, "Don't worry, brother Lu. Indeed, he lives up to his reputation." Just as he finished his sentence, Lu Cheng was about to reply when the referee at the side shouted, "Begin!" With a whoosh, Wang Kei charged towards Lu Cheng like a laser beam. It was as though he wanted to take on the 5 flames head-on. The speed of the light sect was faster than the wind sect. In an instant he was already close to his opponent. Lu Cheng didn't hold back at all. Instead of retreating, he stretched his back, clenched his fist, and swung it down fiercely. The red, golden, blue, blazing white, and faint purple flames behind him fell and merged into one. Since Wang Kei wanted to take it head-on, he wouldn't be modest. At this moment, Wang Kei's figure suddenly flashed and disappeared from his original spot. It was as though what happened just now was just an illusion. His figure suddenly appeared at Lu Cheng's side. In an instant he became clear. His forehead was covered in sweat. The burden was definitely not light. It wasn't until this moment that a loud sound exploded from where he was originally standing. It stirred up a violent storm. That step just now was faster than the speed of sound. Golden Book of Donghuang Xuanpa. This was known as the most difficult secret art of the Light Sect. Not every Yanzhao League physical invulnerability expert had mastered it. Previously, only Dong Baxin had mastered it. Now Wang Ke had to be included. P.S. Begging for monthly votes for the last 3 days. Chapter 632. Instant Steps. Ning Zitong, who was in the VIP seats, lifted her eyelids. Light gathered in her eyes as though the sun had pierced through the clouds. It was only at this moment that she truly believed what Dong Baxin had said previously. Wang Ke was extraordinary. She wasn't the only one. The physical invulnerability experts present and in front of the screens were all shaken as they got to know Wang Ke again. 5 years, no, maybe 3 years later, he would have the strength to fight for the title. Bam! A short but intense explosion sounded. The air expanded into white clouds, crushing Wang Ke's remaining figure. It also shook Lu Cheng's fist and the faint purple and gold colors that had just merged into one. Under normal circumstances, the explosion of 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the sun would cause indiscriminate damage to the surroundings. However, there were 3 layers of protection when it was used. Firstly, the order and direction of the fusion was unique. It was difficult for others to comprehend and could effectively cancel out the waves that impacted the user's body. Secondly, the arm had to be swung, the muscles had to be taut, and the speed had to be extremely fast. This would bring about strong wind pressure and interfere with the trajectory of the explosion, like an invisible barrier. Thirdly, it connected heaven and earth, affecting nature and restricting the general direction of the explosion. These would weaken the power of descent of the sun, but they would protect the user of the move, preventing them from harming themselves every time they used the move. It would always result in a lose-lose situation. In this way, the remaining fish that escaped the net would be nothing more than a breeze to an external invulnerability expert. If they really wanted to perish together, they could cancel such protection in exchange for the ultimate effect. But now the power of this sonic boom had destroyed Lu Cheng's wind pressure barrier, shook the fusion process of the 5 fireballs, and interfered with the connection between his spirit, root pulp, and the surroundings. In other words, 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the sun would explode uncontrollably. Lu Cheng's punch landed and saw Wang Ke disappear, leaving behind a sonic boom. His heart skipped a beat, and his pupils contracted to the size of needles. In the blink of an eye, he didn't have time to think about how to salvage the situation. He immediately gave up control of 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the sun. He bounced his back and swung backwards, forming a thick layer of sparkling ice walls around him. It was as though he had been sealed in an indestructible coffin. Rumble. A blazing light flashed, almost blinding everyone's eyes. The terrifyingly high temperature melted the grass and soil at the core, heating up the buried steel pipes to a bright yellow color in an instant, softening and twisting them like freshly cooked noodles. The raging wind and rolling flames plowed through the ground, digging a huge hole. Lu Cheng's ice wall melted a lot, and then countless cracks appeared on it. Soon it fell apart. At this moment he had already avoided the most severe injuries. He was like a seagull that struggled and soared in the midst of the violent winds and enormous waves. After Wang Ke dodged the attack with transient steps, he retreated at high speed and pulled a distance of more than 10 meters. When the sun descended and the mushroom cloud rose, he was no longer in the most dangerous area. The shockwave swept over the flames. Wang Ke didn't try to take it head-on. Instead, he released an immeasurable amount of light around him and flew backward like a kite, dissipating most of the force. As he flew backward, his eyes were half closed. It was as though a vertical eye had grown in the lake in his heart. Through the air currents and dust, he saw Lu Cheng, who was soaring in the flames and waves. His left hand suddenly reached forward as though he was holding an invisible divine bow bestowed by the heavens. His right hand grabbed the bowstring and pulled it back. In an instant, the divine bow was like a full moon. The immeasurable amount of light around Wang Ke shrunk and condensed between his right thumb and index finger, forming a brilliant, pure and blinding arrow of light. The 8th move of the light sect, vertical convergence, sun-shooting ray. With a whoosh, Wang Ke released his right thumb and index finger. The pure ray penetrated the layers of wind and waves, heading straight for the faraway Lu Cheng. It reached him in an instant. Bam! After the arrow was released, Wang Kei's body became heavy. He stomped heavily on the ground, creating an explosion-like crater. Using this force, he rebounded, knocked away the aftershocks, and headed straight for Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng, who was still struggling in the wind and flames, felt his scalp go numb. A strong sense of danger surged in his heart. Not good. He directly detonated a portion of the fire force in his body, causing his body to strangely change direction without any support, flashing to an angle. With a flash of light, it brushed past him and flew into the distance. When it landed on the ground, it didn't slow down in the slightest as it dug a ditch. At the end of the ditch, a shallow pit was blasted out. A piece of flesh was taken away from Lu Cheng's right rib, exposing his white bones. The pain didn't reach his brain for the time being. It was as if he had already gone numb. Bang! Wang Kei closed in on him and threw a punch at him, accompanied by a flash of light. Lu Cheng raised his arm to block and felt that his opponent's explosive strength was shocking. He was actually forced to take a step back. Bang bang bang. Wang Kei attacked continuously. Every punch and kick was accompanied by a flash of light, making it difficult for the enemy to see and increasing his own explosive power. This was a secret technique that he had prepared when he was charging over. The fourth move of the Donghuang Golden Sutra, Sudden Burst. Lu Cheng couldn't see anything. Relying on the reflection of the all-seeing God, he constantly shook his arms, punched, raised his knees and kicked. He blocked his opponent's crazy attacks with precision as if he had measured them with a ruler. In the first few moves he was forced to take a few steps back. Seeing that he was about to expose an opening, he had no choice but to circulate his qi and blood to stimulate his body. He used the simplified fighting formula to expand his muscles and explode, to barely turn the situation around. Bang! 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 Their fists landed on flesh and their legs collided. Sand and pebbles flew, flames danced, and light scattered in all directions. White ripples formed in the shape of ripples spread out. Lu Cheng felt that Wang Kei's attacks were like a vast and mighty sea. They were vast and boundless, suppressing him firmly. There wasn't any space for him to change his moves or dodge. This was the power of the upright. He clenched his teeth and activated the simplified fighting formula. Relying on his body that could withstand more attacks after attaining physical invulnerability, he was like a small fishing boat in a storm, struggling to maintain its balance but about to capsize at any moment. During this process, Lu Cheng vigilantly realized that other than his mental state, his other attributes were slowly deteriorating. It wasn't because of exhaustion but because of another reason. Suddenly, the content that he had read in the past 2 days flashed across his mind. Light has radiation. This is the foundation of the fusion of the Light Sect and the Plague Sect's incomplete chapters. Under the effects of radiation, the opponent gets weaker and weaker. Lu Cheng knew that he couldn't continue like this, but he couldn't find a chance to turn the tables. Wang Kei's punches and kicks didn't have profound changes. They were just fast, tightly connected, and just right. Together with the sudden burst of light, they formed an inescapable net that couldn't be shaken off. There wasn't any time for him to breathe. Being ordinary is the most deadly. Is this the potential of a master? Lu Cheng's heart was cold as he maintained his calm. He knew that the only thing he could do now was to hold on and wait. Wang Kei's sudden burst of light couldn't last forever. Bam! 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 Another dozen moves passed. Lu Cheng had no choice but to simplify the fighting formula and alternate it with normal attacks. He alternated between taking the blow head-on and retreating. The weakness in his body gradually became apparent. At this moment, Wang Kei's attacks showed signs of slowing down. The continuous burst of light wasn't accompanied by it. The terrifying sudden burst of light had finally reached its limit. Wang Kei slid his feet and dodged away from the front. He pushed his right palm and spread his 5 fingers. He struck out a burst of light that resembled Hadouken to connect the consecutive moves. Now's the time. Lu Cheng's willpower exploded. He gathered his qi and blood and outlined the fighting formula. While the weakness in his body was mostly neutralized by force concentration, he swelled up and turned into a giant with dark green skin. Then, ignoring his injuries, he lowered his shoulders and slammed violently to the side. Bam! He smashed through the burst of light and hit Wang Kei's crossed arms, creating an explosion of air. The impact caused his opponent to lose his horse stance and stagger backwards. As he staggered, the image of Lu Cheng suppressing Xan Xiaoya with consecutive outbursts appeared in Wang Kei's mind. He knew that he had to dodge to avoid being in danger. He took a deep breath and turned his back. His body spun crazily on the spot like a roly-poly toy, making it hard to tell where he was going to be thrown. But at this moment he saw that Lu Qing didn't chase after him. Instead, he stood on the spot and raised his hands expressionlessly to form a seal. Formation. A low and oppressive voice reverberated, evoking the mystery and guiding the environment. The layers of air around Wang Ke became solid and turned into steel plates, imprisoning him in a prison cell. This was the formation formula that Lu Qing had never used before in front of the public ever since he self-learned it. Wang Ke's body froze and was stuck there. Lu Qing seized the opportunity and bent his back, causing the dark universe to appear around him. Specks of fire condensed and turned into stars, embellishing the boundless coldness. Bam! He straightened his back and took a step forward. He punched Wang Ke, who was trapped in the formation formula. Fundamental unique skill, Cosmic Phantom. The hair on Wang Ke's back stood on end. Rays of light bloomed all over his body as though they were going to illuminate the surroundings. Just as the light pierced through the prison cell, it was shrouded in darkness. A crystalline layer of ice formed around Wang Ke and on the surface of his body. Following that, suns after suns were attracted and flew over. They were densely packed and came one after another. It was like a mutated version of 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the sun. Seeing this, Wang Ke clenched his teeth and visualized to protect his vitals. Taking advantage of the moment when the ice layer restraining him broke, he took a step forward towards the suns. Boom, boom, boom. Amidst the explosion, light and shadow distorted. His body suddenly disappeared and appeared on the other side of Lu Qing. His hair was messy, his clothes were torn, and he was covered in wounds. His eyes showed obvious fatigue. Light Sect's 5th style transient steps. With Wang Ke's current ability, he could only use it 3 times at most without rest and adjustment. Boom. Rumble. The sound exploded and ignited the stars around, creating a storm that was comparable to the arrival of the sun earlier. Lu Qing's clothes fluttered in the wind. However, he didn't attack Wang Ke immediately. Instead, he raised his hands again, his expression calm and solemn. Wang Ke's eyes narrowed. He changed his footsteps and shifted his position, not giving Lu Qing a chance to restrain him again. Right at this moment, a deep and clear Lin word resounded in his ears. Wang Ke's body and mind seemed to be cleansed and became clear. Apart from that, fatigue was uncontrollable. It made his fighting spirit fade and his mind go blank. P.S. Updated on time, looking for monthly votes. Chapter 633. At this moment, Wang Ke only wanted to lie on the ground and enjoy the cool autumn breeze. He didn't want to care about the chaos and strife in the world anymore. Just as such a feeling surfaced as an experienced mighty one, he already sensed that something was wrong. He forcefully shifted his attention to the wound caused by the explosion, magnifying the pain that he had deliberately endured. It made his mind feel as though it was being pricked by an awl, making him feel invigorated again. And because of this delay, Lu Qing had already taken a step forward. Using the wind as his footing, he raised his right hand and struck towards Wang Quebec. This strike was rather slow and wasn't completed yet. The surroundings were already dark, as though they were filled with gray clouds, brewing a snowstorm in the white sky. Wang Ke activated his Donghuang force and automatically pierced through his body, completely breaking free from the influence of the confrontation formula. Just as he was about to unleash his divine light to defend against the enemy's attack, he realized that Lu Qing's strike wasn't aimed at him, but at the space between the two of them. Whoosh! A gust of cold wind blew over quickly, brushing past Wang Ke's face. It seeped into his body, causing his thoughts to freeze. After the control-type confrontation formula, Lu Qing didn't follow it up with a killer move, but another control move. Ice Sect's 4th style, cutting face like knives. This was the blueprint of Severe Warning's paternal lineage. Seeing that Wang Ke was frozen in place, Lu Qing stepped on the ground with his left foot, twisted his back and spread his right arm. He threw a punch forward. The heavy, blazing white on the surface changed with the wind and was instantly dyed with a faint purple color, which gradually deepened. With a boom, the leaden clouds dispersed and the heavens and earth were set ablaze. The crimson flames were like rain above, lava below, and waves in the middle. They clustered around Lu Qing's fist and surged towards the statue-like enemy. As for Wang Ke, he was like a moth attracted by the purple flames. He couldn't help but lean forward, losing the opportunity to dodge. Fire Sect's 3rd style, Lord Emperor's purple flames. The high temperature burned his body and the purple color entered his eyes. Wang Ke finally woke up and regained his senses. Without thinking, he instinctively raised his arms to block and hurriedly activated his Donghuang force. Just as his body was about to glow, Lu Cheng's fist had already hit his cross-defensive stance. Boom! The purple flames exploded, creating a shockwave. Wang Ke's body swayed and his divine light dimmed. He took a few steps back and staggered. His front, back, left, right and face were all burned. It was a shocking sight. The new vibrations in his body and the residual effects from before brought him the discomfort of vomiting blood. Clang. Lu Cheng's zzz. SSSSSSS. He was going to use a big move to destroy a normal attack. In the previous battle, Wang Ke had used Burst of Light to suppress him, forcing him into a passive state and forcing him to use the simplified fighting formula to resist. Both Emperor Yin and Ice Spirit were neutralized by the Burst of Light due to their lack of physical invulnerability techniques. At this moment he was giving Wang Ke a taste of his own medicine. The purple light in Wang Ke's eyes magnified as the fist approached him at high speed. Wang Ke, who had just stabilized his center of gravity, didn't show any signs of fear. He steadied his back and pushed his feet against the ground. While the ground around him was cracking rapidly, he shook his arms and swung his fists at the thousand-layer fire wave. Bam! His fist rubbed against the air, releasing a dazzling radiance that lit up the purplish-red sky. Boom! Fist against fist. The purple flames tore at the radiance. The radiance melted the purple flames. When the muscles caved in and the bones were slightly deformed, a white blast of air exploded. The crimson rain and magma were disintegrated and dimmed by the majestic divine light. Lu Cheng and Wang Ke both took a step back. They were evenly matched. All of a sudden, Lu Cheng had a deeper understanding of why Wang Ke was praised by Dong Baxian. This was something that couldn't be seen from watching the match highlights. He didn't know if it was because Wang Ke's light sex martial arts were pure and he was able to cut down on complexity and reduce time. Like Dong Baxian and the other top-notch figures, he increased the speed of his physical invulnerability moves and seized opportunities from passivity. Or was it because his punches and kicks were close to the power of physical invulnerability moves with normal force? The former was called lifting something heavy as if it were light, while the latter was turning something rotten into something magical. His master potential was indeed well-deserved. Perhaps he had solidified the 1-second reduction, passive skill. Similar thoughts flooded his mind. Lu Cheng's ice heart was unmoved. He seized the opportunity while he still had the initiative. With a stomp, he activated his body movement. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A strong gust of wind was stirred up on the spot by Lu Cheng. He kept changing his position, throwing punches and kicks crazily. He was as fast as a machine gun, and every punch and kick was accompanied by dreamy cold light and white fog. Bam bam bam. He swung his punch backwards, borrowed the force to pull his leg back and launched another attack. He was like a spinning top, getting faster and faster as he fought. Every time he clashed with Wang Ke, the coldness and stiffness in his opponent's body would increase. From his fist and arm, it penetrated through the Donghuang force's counteraction and spread throughout his entire body. Ice Sect's third move, Blizzard Storm. Its simplified version was called 24 Blizzard Strikes. Bam bam bam. Wang Ke's physical invulnerability moves couldn't keep up with Lu Cheng's craziness and continuous attacks. He could only contend with his normal punches and kicks that contained the Donghuang force. Although they were equally strong and extraordinary, he was still completely suppressed and couldn't shake them off. Gradually he felt his limbs stiffen and his body's movements become sluggish. At this moment Lu Cheng had also reached his limit. He took the initiative to change. Abruptly, he stopped his movements and gathered his force concentration towards his lower abdomen. Seeing this, Wang Ke wanted to dodge. However, the stiffness of his body slowed his movements. He had no choice but to use force concentration to neutralize the negative effects. His chi and blood collapsed, darkness gathered and stars appeared, occupying the mainstream of the universe. Lu Cheng had fully displayed the side effects of practicing 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the Sun. This was the exact opposite of the lament of the Ice Queen. Bam! His muscles swelled and he swung his back. He threw a punch. The instant burst of light was as though he was practicing the golden scriptures of Donghuang. Boom! Wang Ke activated his Dan force in time and swung his forearm to block Lu Cheng's punch, creating an exaggerated explosion. Thump thump thump. He took a few steps back. Blood and flesh could be seen on his arm. There seemed to be cracks on his bones. He was at a disadvantage. Just as Lu Qing pounced and closed in on him again, a glow appeared on the surface of Wang Kei's body. He took a step diagonally. With a flash of light, he disappeared from his original spot, leaving only an afterimage. This was the third time he had used transient steps. Lu Qing quickly formed an ice wall, raised his arms and blocked in front of him. Boom. At the same time Wang Kei's figure appeared, there was an explosion. The airflow was chaotic and Lu Cheng's crystalline body shattered. He was forcefully pushed back a few steps. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Wang Kei released rays of divine light from inside out. His fatigue decreased significantly, and many of his wounds showed signs of healing at an accelerated rate. The sixth style of the light sect, lofty holy light. This could affect the opponent's mental state, and at the same time, it could strengthen the user, squeeze out their potential and heal injuries. Seeing this, Lu Cheng was momentarily annoyed. Seeing that it was too late to stop him, he could only circulate his qi and blood to stimulate his body. He quickly used the simplified wholeness formula to refresh his body. Wang Kei sensed the change in him and laughed out loud. Again. He had also fought with passion, no longer keeping a low profile as usual. Bam, bam, bam. The two of them turned at high speeds, stirring up strong winds. They kept looking for opportunities but to no avail. After a while they clashed again. Lu Cheng's Dan force exploded. Using his body as a bow and his arm as a string, he shot out his fist at lightning speed. Just as Wang Kei raised his arm to block, he heard a muffled sound from his opponent's fist. Sparks bloomed and the trajectory of the fist changed strangely. It went from a straight-up punch to a downward punch. Instead of passively defending, Wang Kei lowered his shoulder and leaned his body to the side, directly crashing into Lu Cheng. He avoided the third possible change in direction, and seized the opportunity to attack. Bam bam bam. Rumble rumble rumble. The two of them kept exchanging blows in the narrow space. Their close-range combat techniques were on full display. Sometimes it was raining fire and sometimes it was shining brightly. During this process, the purity of Wang Kei's martial arts was maximized, causing Lu Qing to slowly fall into a disadvantageous position. I can't continue like this. Otherwise it'll be hard to turn back. A thought flashed through Lu Cheng's mind, and he changed his fighting style. As he struck with his fist, he formed a crimson fireball around him. It was as though he was accumulating energy to perform 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the sun. Boom. Lu Cheng's fist landed on Wang Kei's arm. The crimson fireball around him didn't wait any longer. It descended rapidly and was ignited by the light shot out by his opponent. Air billowed and the two of them retreated. Lu Cheng formed a blazing white fireball around him again. It grew bigger and bigger like the sun. Bam. Wang Kei rushed over, turned his back halfway and threw out a punch. It was as though he didn't want to give Lu Cheng the time to gather the 5 flames. Lu Cheng responded accordingly. Just as the two of their fists were about to meet, light suddenly gathered in Wang Kei's eyes and shot out. It brushed past the blazing white fireball and destroyed its balance. This was one of the methods he prepared to deal with 9 rotations of 5 flames. The reason why he didn't use it earlier was to not alert Lu Cheng and to trick him into expending more energy. Boom. The blazing white fireball exploded in mid-air, turning into drops of fire rain. Lu Cheng and Wang Kei's clothes fluttered as their fists collided. In what was supposed to be a simple exchange, Wang Kei felt an extremely cold force surge towards him. He saw ice crystals forming around him, isolating him. He was sealed in an ice coffin in an instant. Lu Cheng was using the 5 flames as bait to secretly use the lament of the Ice Queen. When the flame force was far away, wouldn't the body be left with only darkness and coldness? This was the overall meaning of the lament of the Ice Queen. Just as Wang Kei was hit by the move, Lu Cheng immediately changed his visualization and launched a frenzied attack. Every move was heavy, and every punch was filled with flames. Boom, boom, boom. Wang Kei's punches and kicks were difficult. He was dizzy from the attacks and was in danger within a few seconds. Bam. Lu Cheng raised his arm high and threw a punch down, breaking Wang Kei's stance. He hit him so hard that he saw stars and his qi and blood were in turmoil. Bam. Lu Cheng threw another punch and stopped in front of Wang Kei's dazed eyes. The referee saw it from afar and shouted, "Lu Cheng wins." Chapter 634. The air that burned his respiratory tract gradually cooled down. Everything in front of him that was distorted by the high temperature returned to normal. Wang Kei's eyes regained their luster. He patted the dust off his clothes and stood up straight. He looked at Lu Cheng and said thoughtfully, "Ice and fire in one?" This sentence was sent via voice transmission to avoid being recorded by the camera. Lu Cheng knew that he couldn't hide the essence of that move from Wang Quebec. He nodded calmly and said, "Yes." Wang Kei seemed to have solved a difficult problem. His body and mind felt more relaxed. He heaved a sigh of relief and turned to leave. At this moment, a thought flashed across Lu Cheng's mind. He blurted out, "Can you use transient steps continuously?" Since they were all talking via voice transmission, this question was no exception. Lu Cheng regretted it the moment the words left his mouth. This involved the trump card of a martial artist. It wasn't something others should ask. Wang Kei stopped in his tracks. After thinking for a few seconds, he smiled and said, "Yes." With that, he didn't stay any longer. He walked along the path full of potholes and flames towards the exit he came from. His back was straight, and he looked neither humble nor arrogant under the spotlight. "Yes." Lu Cheng nodded slowly. While enjoying the cheers, he had some other thoughts in his mind. If that's the case, the best use of transient steps shouldn't be for dodging, but for attacking. Lu Cheng raised his hands high and clapped his hands to show his respect. He walked further and further on the path of light until he disappeared at the edge of the arena. During this process, he only felt the sense of weakness appear again. Combined with the exhaustion of his body, it made him very tired. His footsteps were weak as though he was seriously ill. Of course, having been seriously injured for a long time, he was very used to it. He walked steadily without any difficulty. When he returned to the locker room, he first took the phone from Amen and sent a message to Yenjika. Snickering emoji, "I won." In the morning in Connecticut, Yenjika, who was listening to her tutor's lecture seriously, felt her pocket vibrate. She looked around silently, reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Before the light went out, she took a quick glance. Her lips curled into a beautiful arc. She stuffed her phone back into her pocket and held the side of her face. Her silky black hair fell through the gaps between her fingers. She became more focused and excited as she continued to listen to the lecture. In the live broadcast room, the host looked at the heavyweight commentator beside him, cleared his throat and said in a rather restrained manner, "This is truly an exciting battle. Senior Wu Guang, what do you think?" Taoist Wu Guang, whose hair was a mix of silver and black, gave a gentle smile. "Indeed." His appearance was ordinary, and he belonged to the kind of old man that could be seen everywhere. Those who had never seen him before would always feel that this person was familiar when they first saw him. The host was almost choked by this concise and comprehensive answer. He could only take the initiative to lead the conversation. He smiled and said, "Senior Wu Guang, I didn't expect you to be a guest. It's rare for you to be so free. Did you get a buy this round? You didn't participate in the first round either? Did you only find out today?" Taoist Wu Guang shook his head with a smile. "I didn't manage to register." His smile was light and carefree as if he was used to such things. "Why?" the host blurted out in surprise. "During the registration, our sect's Foreign Affairs Division forgot about me. The organizing committee felt that I would definitely participate, so they didn't verify it," said Taoist Wu Guang helplessly and amusedly. Because of this, he had agreed to be a guest commentator, thinking that since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. "You are the sect leader?" The host wanted to reply, but when the words reached his mouth, he forcefully swallowed them back down. Instead, he smiled and said, "Senior Wu Guang, can you give a brief comment on the match just now?" Taoist Wu Guang pondered for a moment. Lu Cheng and Wang Kei both performed at an extremely high level. Both are among the best of the younger generation. Lu Cheng's victory was partly due to the lack of fights between physical invulnerability experts, so Wang Kei didn't fully understand him. There was always the element of surprise. However, this is part of a martial arts battle. Fortunately, this is modern times and it's a challenge tournament. If this were 100 or 200 years ago, or even 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, the secret trump card would be the key to a martial artist's victory. Many strong martial artists couldn't stand up again after a moment of carelessness or carelessness. Physical invulnerability experts still have a chance to regret. As for those below, Wu Guang shook his head and continued. "Here I have to criticize Wang Quebec. He knew that Lu Cheng had many tricks up his sleeve, but he didn't take sufficient precautions despite not knowing his opponent well. This is a little careless. This habit isn't a big deal in a challenge tournament, but in a real battle, it's dangerous." Wang Kei probably didn't expect Lu Cheng to have so many tricks up his sleeve, and even have something new in the end. The host helped to explain. Then he asked curiously, Senior Wu Guang, I can see that Wang Ke is strong, but where do you see something as intangible as master potential? Instead of arguing, Taoist Wu Guang explained seriously, that's right. He explained seriously, when everyone is practicing the same martial arts and you have a deeper and purer grasp of it than everyone else, your performance is more powerful, simpler, faster, and more powerful. That's master potential. What the hell is he talking about? It's too abstract and not intuitive at all, the host thought. After thinking for a few seconds, he smiled and asked, then what do you think of Lu Qing? Taoist Wu Guang answered with great interest, from this battle, we can see that his ice and fire powers weren't forcefully mixed together. Instead, they formed a harmonious whole. From the small details to the big details, it's all the same. When the fire is on the outside, the ice is on the inside. Wang Ke didn't realize this point and separated the ice and fire powers. This is consistent with Lu Cheng's explanation in the previous interview. I believe that he has indeed taken a different path from his predecessors, a path that is new to everyone's eyes. His fighting style is close to that of a martial artist, but there are also some similarities. If we try to trick him with old tricks and don't recognize this point clearly, there will be people who are stronger than him who will lose because of this. Glory aside, this is the performance of a grandmaster in terms of martial arts. When Lu Cheng perfects this path and creates his own set of martial arts, he will be able to spread it. That will really be the start of a new sect, the first of its kind. The first of its kind. Just these two words are enough to show great spirit. The host exclaimed. Under the latest news on Yanzhao League's official Weibo, the number of comments increased again. One fan after another expressed their feelings after witnessing the battle. Amazing, truly amazing. Air K is being silly again. I heard, the sect leader of Shanqing sect say that Air K was being silly for once. You can't say that. Lu Qing is indeed strong. He deserves his reputation as the heavenly son of the age. Sigh, I finally understand what it means to live up to your reputation. From the looks of it, even if there are various reasons for Lu Cheng's victory, he is still a second pin fighter, or at least close to it. It's only been 3 months since he broke through. I heard the sect leader of Shanqing sect say that Lu Qing really has the potential to become a grandmaster. Yan Shaoling replied to the forum as she read the comments of her opponents. She felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. She hurriedly scrolled from Yanzhao League's official Weibo, Yanzhao League's forum, Wang Ke's Weibo, Wang Ke's forum to Weiwei Club, Shanqing sect and other unrelated places. She eagerly read every word. When she finally calmed down, she felt more tired than fighting a match. Most of Lu Cheng's fans on the forum were doing the same. In the changing room, Wang Ke didn't leave immediately. After treating his injuries, he replayed his battle with Lu Qing over and over again. He would pause from time to time and fall into deep thought. His battle style is more similar to Wisdom King's, many control methods, very good coordination in all aspects. After some time, Wang Ke, who was sitting cross-legged on the sofa, suddenly stood up as though he couldn't wait to practice something. After returning to the hotel, the exhausted Lu Qing said goodbye to Yanzhika and fell into a deep sleep. Amen saw that she had nothing to do and entered the room diagonally opposite. Coincidentally, she saw Guijie's assistant, Wang Yueshi, coming out of the shower. Seeing Amen, Wang Yueshi was stunned. She smiled and gave a thumbs up. Your boss is really awesome. He's all right, replied Amen with a smile. She finally understood what it meant to be proud of someone. In the second round of the competition, Lu Qing was matched against a surviving inhuman stage fighter and passed with ease. Peng Liyun, on the other hand, was matched against the witch, Qian Hui. Due to carelessness, he suffered his first defeat after reaching the physical invulnerability stage. Fortunately, he wasn't eliminated yet. Ren Li finally met an opponent of sufficient strength and won with difficulty. At this moment, there were still 65 mighty ones left. All the Inhumans had been eliminated. The fourth round of drawing lots was about to be announced. While chatting leisurely with Ku, Lu Qing was also paying attention to the results. Before he could mentally prepare himself, he heard his name being announced. Lu Qing shifted his gaze to the TV screen and waited for the results to be announced. The guest opened the paper and announced with a smile, Daxing Temple Living Buddha Shi Shan. Chapter 635. Living Buddha Shi Shan? Lu Qing, who was leaning on the pillow, was stunned for a second. Then he sat up straight and his eyes lit up. He felt like he was dreaming again. Unlike the Mummy, Dark Knight Bat, XN Xiaoye Wang Ke, and the other physical invulnerability mighty ones he had fought before, he had heard of the name Living Buddha for a long time. In fact, he had been practicing martial arts for a long time. Sher Shan of this generation had already made the great leap when he was in his 3rd year of high school. He was known as the youngest physical invulnerability mighty ones and the heavenly son of heaven. He had heard of him for a long time. Now that he had met him, how could he not be excited? To Lu Qing, at this moment and in this situation, he had a deeper understanding of himself as a physical invulnerability expert. The things that he could only fantasize about in his bed during his adolescence were coming true, step by step. Such an experience was so wonderful. While thinking, Lu Qing lowered his head and typed on the keyboard. He sent the result of the draw to Yanjika, Living Buddha. Following that, he added a comment with a red bandana over his head emoji. Looking forward to it. He was looking forward to experiencing this great monk's marvelous skills and techniques. He was looking forward to sparring with the person he had yearned for in the past. Yanjika was taking a short break between classes. Just as she was about to take the time to browse Lu Cheng's fan forum, she saw 2 consecutive messages from her husband. Living Buddha? Her dark eyes lit up. The feelings in her heart were very similar to Lu Cheng's. Before she could differentiate her emotions, she saw the word looking forward to it. She couldn't help but curve her eyes and curl her lips. She deliberately said, "What are you looking forward to?" The great monk is a true first pin mighty one. After making the great leap, the living Buddhas of the past would indeed slow down their progress. However, with the wisdom of past eras and unique martial arts, it was still easy for them to reach second pin. Now that 5 years had passed with his accumulation, it was normal for him to reach first pin. Lu Qing didn't mind at all and said, "Winning and losing is a common thing for martial artists. This was an experiential journey. You have a good attitude." Covering mouth and laughing expression, Yanjika said, "Who's the one who's always sulking after losing a match?" Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He replied in a self-deprecating tone, "That's all to create an opportunity to be comforted by you." Yanjika turned her eyes and pursed her lips. She turned her head and looked to the side with a smile on her face. At this moment she saw her mentor slowly walking in. She hurriedly typed a message, "It's time for class. When I get back tonight I'll discuss the living Buddha's techniques with you. I'm waiting for Coach Yan," replied Lu Qing. He put away his phone and sat cross-legged for a few seconds. He didn't even pay attention to the results of Peng Liyun and Ren Li's draw, nor did he discuss it in the group chat. He seriously pondered the various rumors about the living Buddha. Daxing Temple was first established based on the great light scripture of Buddha. Later on, it merged with several branches of Tantric Buddhism, which led to the formation of the 2 supreme arts, womb storage and Vajra. More than 100 years ago, when the world was in chaos, Daxing Temple took advantage of the decline of the living Buddha sect and swallowed up the largest Tantric sect. Not only did they complete the 2 supreme arts of womb storage and Vajra, but they also filled in the forbidden areas of the great light scripture of Buddha, leaping to the forefront of the top forces. This incident happened not long ago. Many senior physical invulnerability experts still remembered it clearly. Hence, Daxing Temple didn't want to use the reincarnation of the living Buddha as a front. Instead, they went around and said they were taking him in. Generations of living Buddhas were all able to manifest the image of Vairocana. They were born with thought steel and could master the 6-syllable Sanskrit within a month. Also, the Bodhi mantra of the womb storage was a supreme art unique to the living Buddha. Even Wisdom King Zhihai couldn't master it. At most, he could only scratch the surface. In battle, the living Buddha was known for his strong mental strength. When he attacked, it was hard to tell if it was real or not. Jiuqiu City, Taining Road, at a roadside barbecue stall. The tall and fat living Buddha, Sher Shan, was squatting on a small folding stool. He looked anxiously at the stall owner as he sprinkled cumin over and over again. He was wearing a gray woolen hat and a black t-shirt, which hid his features as a monk. "All right, here's your barbecue." The stall owner walked over with a metal plate and a huge pile of food. Pork ribs, fat intestines, chicken skin, beef, mutton. Sher Shan sized up the food and said with certainty, "Did you get the wrong food?" "Got the wrong food." The stall owner muttered softly. He returned to the barbecue grill and picked up the menu from the table. As he walked around Sher Shan, he flipped through the menu. 20 skewers of green beans, 20 skewers of small potatoes, 20 skewers of eggplant, 20 skewers of steamed buns. The stall owner read aloud. He looked at Sher Shan and asked in surprise, You're a vegetarian? Is that strange? Sher Shan smiled and asked in return. Your figure? The stall owner paused and said, You really don't look like one. Sher Shan sighed and said with a smile, In the past, when I saw those fat and strong abbot masters, I always suspected that they had broken their precepts in private and were not good monks. When I grew up, I realized that some people can get fat from eating vegetarian food. The stall owner was speechless for a moment. He decided to just send over a bowl of clear soup. Big brother, don't think about that. Come and try this white pepper clear soup. It'll be officially sold in a few days. Smelling the fragrance, Sher Shan took the bowl and gulped it down. This is hot. Slow down, slow down. The stall owner was shocked. Sher Shan finished it in a few mouthfuls and wiped his mouth. The taste of pepper is very strong and fragrant. Not bad, not bad. He seemed to have an appetite. He picked up the skewers and wolfed them down. Just as he was eating happily, he suddenly heard the table behind him excitedly discussing the master battle. Lu Qing just drew the living Buddha. That's amazing. It's the outer heavenly sun versus the heavenly sun of the age. It's common knowledge that there are 5 of the 4 heavenly kings. What's there to talk about? The living Buddha is a first pin. I'm afraid Lu Qing is going to lose. Sher Shan slowed down his chewing motion and muttered with interest, What's the matter? Lu Qing? He pondered for a few seconds and once again immersed himself in the whirlwind sweeping away the clouds. I can't let tonight's supper be delayed because of the battle the day after tomorrow. When the living Buddha snuck out to enjoy the Jianghu barbecue, the internet was already abuzz. Headlines such as Battle of the Heavenly Suns and Prelude to an Era could be seen everywhere. The poison milk hierarch He Xiaowei looked at all of this happily and felt deeply satisfied. He was the one who came up with the idea of the 4 heavenly suns and gradually spread it. It was recognized and became a gimmick. Cough, do you still remember how I evaluated the heavenly suns? I didn't expect Lu Qing to meet the living Buddha in just a few years. He Xiaowei pondered for a few minutes before posting on Weibo. He was expecting to be praised, but the replies he saw had nothing to do with it. Disappointing. You didn't predict who would win or lose. Poison milk hierarch, are you too arrogant? Or are we fans too weak to lift a knife? If you have the guts, then guess that Lu Qing would lose. To the one above, are you a fan of Lu Qing? He Xiaowei's eyelids twitched. He picked up the teacup and took a sip. You want to provoke me to predict Lu Qing's match? No way. I cherish my eyebrows and hair. Living Buddha? Brahmin, who had her signature twin ponytails, was excited. She sat up, put the light and thin laptop on her lap, and started to browse the forum crazily. She was busy discussing with others and reading predictions. At this moment her phone rang. It was a message from her boyfriend. Tong Tong, you look so good in that dress today. Brahmin picked up the phone, glanced at it and quickly replied with a few words. I'm busy. Talk to you later. After clicking send, she looked at the screen again, focused and serious. In the dormitory of Songqing University, Yan Shaoling was complaining to He Zi with a gloomy expression. Anyway, my old uncle is a weirdo. And my dad, now that he has a new home, he can't wait for me to move there. Who would have thought that Ling Ling's silly and cheerful appearance hid so many sad memories? He Zi was surprised. She couldn't help but feel pity for her and wanted to comfort her best friend. At this moment, Yan Shaoling glanced at her phone casually and jumped up. She shouted, Living Buddha? She turned around abruptly and rushed to the computer table. She opened her laptop and browsed the forum on her phone. Sometimes she was nervous, sometimes she was excited, sometimes she was laughing, and sometimes she was excited. He Zi looked at her in a daze and silently swallowed back the words she wanted to say. After a day, the 4th round of the double elimination competition of the Master Battle began. The battle between Lu Qing and Living Buddha Sher Shan was scheduled for the last match in the afternoon. It would start between 5 p.m. and 5:30 p.m., depending on the length of the previous matches. It was still the familiar Jiangxin Island with the same ships and drones. Yan Zhika, who had woken up early, covered her mouth with her hand and yawned. She pulled the pillow beside her over and stuffed it behind her back. It's not as comfortable as Cheng's body. Yan Zhika suddenly recalled their daily interactions when she was watching battle videos and watching TV series. She released her right hand, bit her lower lip and sighed. At this moment she saw Lu Qing and Sher Shan coming over in separate boats. She quickly collected her thoughts and pursed her lips. The two stood at the bow of their boats. Although the river was swaying, their bodies didn't sway at all. It felt like a battle between ancient martial artists. Stepping onto the shore, Lu Qing approached the referee and saw Sher Shan, who was wearing a yellow monk robe. This living Buddha had a big head and a thick neck. He looked like a certain singer. If he wore a wig and tied his hair into a ponytail, the audience would think that if he shouted, "The great river flows to the east," would definitely come out. Sher Shan smiled and put his palms together in greeting. When Lu Qing returned the greeting, the referee looked at his watch and the many drones hovering in the sky. He raised his right arm and said, "Talk time starts now." Just as Lu Qing was about to form the 5 flames, something changed in front of him. He saw the desolated Jianghu island, with vegetation growing and Bodhi trees growing. Colored glass, gold and agate were mixed among them. They emitted waves of Buddhist light, solemn and sacred. The fat monk opposite him was glowing with golden light. He sat cross-legged on a lotus platform. Around him were phantoms of wisdom, King Vajra, Bodhisattva and celestial dragon. He looked like a Buddha descending to earth. His natural smile disappeared. His eyes became cold and indifferent, as though he had seen through the changes of the human world and the vicissitudes of time. At this moment, Lu Qing couldn't tell if this was an illusion or reality. P.S. Actually, I just changed my ID today. I went early so there weren't many people. It took less than 40 minutes, less than the time I took to go back and forth and get stuck in traffic. However, the temperature is dropping these few days, so I miserably brought the wrong clothes. They were all short-sleeved. Chapter 636. The sky seemed to be shrouded in glass, sprinkling a faint golden glow. Living Buddha Sher Shan sat on top of the lotus platform, quietly looking down at Lu Qing without any intention of speaking. Instead, the illusory figures of bodhisattvas and wisdom kings surrounding him moved their lips, chanting scriptures. Their chanting was muffled, just like what visitors would hear during morning and evening classes in the temple. Ethereal and solemn chants reverberated. Lotuses bloomed one after another, emerging from the mud but not tainted. They were pure and clear but not demonic. They had transcended the mortal world and were detached from the secular world. Lu Qing wasn't fooled by such a strange scene. The ice lake was still without ripples. In his perception, within a radius of 5 meters with himself as the center, there was no lotus or bodhi. There was only the light of a pale glaze that was gentle and faintly discernible. However, as long as this boundary was exceeded, the Pure Land would descend and the Buddhist kingdom would appear. The living Buddha's spirit has reduced the effect of my enemy heart-freezing move and the size of my territory to this extent. Lu Qing's expression was solemn. His thoughts raced as he considered his current situation. It was said that the succession of the living Buddhas involved the inheritance of spirit. It was similar to the possibility that the descendants of physical invulnerability experts might be born with supernatural abilities. There was a theoretical explanation for the latter. Just like how words and symbols could express the meaning of one's predecessors, the composition of one's genes could also express the information left behind by one's predecessors. This was a memory rooted in one's body. From this perspective, the living Buddha seemed to be traceable as well. However, the current research on spirit was still lagging behind. Everything was just speculation and unproven. It was said that the military had been trying all sorts of methods to get Daxing Temple to release the secret art of reincarnation of the living Buddha. Unfortunately, they had never succeeded. A living Buddha who had undergone empowerment was born with a strong spirit. When he cultivated the womb realm and Vajra realm, it was as though he had already mastered it in his previous life. However, he was unfamiliar with it now. Once he was slightly familiar with it, he could immediately get the hang of it. It was no wonder that some seniors had speculated that the selection of a living Buddha reincarnated spirit child had the most basic requirement, which was to be gifted and able to withstand the empowerment. Such a child would only appear once every 20 to 30 years. If it wasn't discovered in time, one could only choose a disciple with good potential to inherit the title of living Buddha. When he had mastered the secret art, he would find a spirit child to perform empowerment. This was also the reason why the living Buddha lineage was at a low point. Back then, Daxing Temple took advantage of the chaos in the world where spirit children were hard to find. And Tantra, the largest lineage of Tantric Buddhism for 2 generations, to find an opportunity to swallow them. While his thoughts were running wild, Lu Qing calmly formed red, light blue, golden, light purple and blazing white fireballs. He let them circle around his body and dance. As soon as the 5 flames were formed, the Buddhist kingdom suddenly darkened. The night sky suddenly turned upside down and sprinkled on the earth, embellishing the pitch-black curtain. However, this didn't dilute the Pure Land. Instead, it made it more dreamy and sacred. The living Buddha lives up to his name. In the live broadcast studio, although the scene the host saw wasn't as realistic as Lu Cheng's, he could vaguely see scenes described in various Buddhist scriptures. Beside him, the old Taoist with a bun nodded in agreement. More than half of the living Buddha's abilities lie in his spirit. At this moment, the referee standing at the edge of Riverheart Island raised his right hand and announced, "Begin." Along with this sentence, the chanting of scriptures in Lu Cheng's ears grew louder and clearer. It calmed his mind and body, making it difficult to summon his fighting spirit. Controlling his body became several times more difficult. What was even more frightening was that he seemed to have entered the slow motion of a movie. Everything around him slowed down, frame by frame like a dream. In the distance, the golden body living Buddha sitting on the lotus platform suddenly appeared in front of him. He solemnly raised his right hand and pressed it down from above. The palm's 5 fingers were spread open and shone brightly, covering the sky and sealing off all gaps. It made the area Lu Cheng was in seem independent, making it impossible for him to dodge or escape. Such a scene made Lu Cheng feel as though he had stepped into a Buddhist scripture. He felt as though the exaggerated myths and legends were really happening around him. If he hadn't read the notes of the battle between the physical invulnerability experts of the Longhu Club and the living Buddha, Lu Cheng would have thought that his opponent's divine arts had disrupted time and cut out an independent space like a cage. But now, he was very clear that the inconceivable mysteries of this palm came mainly from the suppression and influence of the mind. It was hard to distinguish between what was real and what was fake. Bodhi Mantra. This was a unique skill of the womb realm that could only be mastered by the living Buddha, who had a strong mind and unique characteristics, through empowerment. At this moment, what the audience and the live audience saw was different from what Lu Cheng saw. In their eyes, the living Buddha Sher Shan was merely stepping on the pale golden Buddha's light. In the scene of it blooming like a lotus, he approached his opponent in one step, raised his right hand and pressed it down slowly and heavily, as though he was going to press his opponent into the ground and seal him. Facing the huge golden Buddha palm that couldn't be avoided or resisted, Lu Cheng suddenly gave up on the enemy heart-freezing move. He took the initiative to draw the fighting formula that was full of battle intent and unyielding. His chi and blood boiled, and the feeling of depression and sluggishness were swept away. Lu Cheng bent his back, retracted his force and balanced his dantian. This time he didn't move the stars to complete the fighting formula. He merely grasped the charm. Bam! His dantian chi exploded, and his fist blasted upwards like a launched rocket. He straightened his body, as though he was going to soar into the clouds and break through the heavenly palace. Even if his palm covered the heavens and earth, even if the Buddha's will couldn't withstand it, even if the path ahead was hopeless, he would force his way through. Never give up, fight heaven and earth. Under this will and aura that connected the inside and outside, the huge golden Buddha palm in Lu Cheng's eyes shrank rapidly. It no longer covered the heavens, but became traceable and returned to the mortal world. Boom! Lu Cheng's fist rose like a real dragon and collided with the pure and untainted Buddha palm. Golden light burst out from the impact, and the other party's arm rebounded and leaned back. At the same time his thoughts flashed. He wanted to gather the crimson, golden, light blue, blazing white and faint purple swirls behind him and smash them out as one. He wanted to use the 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the sun to break the living Buddha's spiritual territory. However, just as he thought of this, the clear and restored Sher Shan's figure in front of him suddenly pulled away. He moved from 2 meters away to the peak of Mount Meru in an instant. He fell back onto the lotus platform, and the distance between him and Sher Shan turned into a faraway place. Lu Cheng recovered his enemy heart-freezing move, but he could only sense the situation within 5 meters. Beyond this distance, he wouldn't be able to tell if the living Buddha in front of him was real or fake. If he blindly used 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the sun, he would only exhaust himself for nothing, and it would be a huge drain. Just as he thought of this, the rapidly circling crimson, faint purple, and other fireballs slowed down and continued to revolve without any difficulty. It wasn't until this moment that Lu Cheng's mind flashed back to his earlier encounter, and he gained some understanding. Thought steal? The living Buddha used thought steal to hear his thoughts in advance and avoided them as if he had foreseen it. This is really a bug-level ability. Daxing Temple's Womb Realm Division's thought steal was equally difficult to master. Most of the time, the disciples could only scratch the surface. Even Wisdom King Ji Hai had only reached the level where he could sense the true emotions of others and detect clues. In the current world, other than the living Buddha Shi Shan, only the abbot of Daxing Temple, divine monk Feyuan, who had practiced silent meditation for decades, could truly master it. In the live broadcast room, the host watched as Lu Qing and Shi Shan separated after a brief exchange of blows. The former's 5 flames, which had been ready to be unleashed, calmed down, while the latter pulled a distance of 20 to 30 meters within a second. The living Buddha avoided descent of the sun in advance? Following which he answered his own question, thought steel is really mysterious. Furthermore, Lu Qing's control of the 5 flames is as light as a feather. I've only seen it on the Dragon King. To be able to forcefully retract and rebalance when he's about to release it, that's no simple feat. As the host rambled on, the silver-haired old Taoist beside him tried to open his mouth a few times but couldn't find a chance to interrupt. Being very polite, he didn't want to interrupt the host and could only quietly play the part of the background. After a short exchange, both Lu Qing and the living Buddha Shi Shan had a more direct impression of each other's style, strength, and standards. At this moment, the living Buddha didn't approach. Instead, he continued to sit cross-legged on the lotus platform at the peak of Mt Meru. His hands formed a seal and his lips opened and closed. Ma. And I. Ba. Me. Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. The 6-syllable Sanskrit mantra was fully executed. P.S. I have to travel in the afternoon. That night watch should be before midnight. Begging for a guaranteed monthly ticket at the beginning of the month. Chapter 637. Wang Mani Padme Hum. Wang Mani Padme Hum. Living Buddha Shi Shan chanted faster and faster. The glazed golden light around him grew brighter and brighter. It was as though something between heaven and earth was being triggered by the 6 syllables, glowing in layers. Lu Qing could only hear the buzzing of the incantation in his ears. An obvious emptiness appeared in his head and his body gradually lost strength. Every bone, every joint and every muscle seemed to have been sealed. They were all slowly being tightened. His spine bent bit by bit and his back arched. It was as though he was bearing the weight of several mountains. Movement was so difficult that even standing seemed like a luxury, not to mention controlling the faint purple and golden fireballs around him. The 6 syllables of Sanskrit had the ability to suppress and seal. It was known as the supreme technique left behind by Buddha in the past. Seeing that the 5 flames were about to disintegrate, Lu Qing couldn't care less. While the suppression was still light, he turned his back, clenched his fist and punched forward. Golden, faint purple and light blue colors gathered and followed the wind of the punch, smashing into the ground. An extremely bright, blazing white light exploded, instantly illuminating the surrounding pure land of Buddha's light, shattering it into pieces as though it was being swallowed. Rumble. The loud noise shook the entire Jianghu island, dispersing the chanting of Wang Mani Padme Hum. At this deafening moment, Lu Qing felt an unprecedented sense of peace. His mind was no longer blank and the shackles on his body were being unlocked one by one. He was breaking technique with brute force. He was breaking the secret technique of Buddha with the power of reality. At this moment, the spectators on the ship saw living Buddha Shi Shan, who wasn't far from Lu Qing and had escaped the most violent effect of the 9 rotations of 5 flames, taking a step forward. Going against the wind and waves, he approached his enemy. Around him, the Buddha's light exploded. It was bright and pure, forming an apparition of Vairocana that was a few meters tall. It was an apparition that was almost real and had fused with the actual body. This Buddha's face was full of compassion and compassion. He extended his huge right palm and pressed it towards Lu Qing as though he was swatting a fly. It was the Vairocana body, the fundamental technique shared by the Great Light Scripture, Womb Realm and Vajra Realm. At this very moment, Lu Qing had just broken free from the light and sound of the 9 rotations of 5 flames. He turned around amidst the wind, waves and flames. Suddenly, he saw that the entire sky was occupied by a golden Buddha, and it was still expanding rapidly. In that instant, Lu Qing felt as if the earth he was on had become a precious jewel in front of the golden Buddha, not to mention himself, who was so small compared to the earth. Immediately after, the Mahavairocana, who was full of majestic appearances, stretched out his palm and pressed down. Lu Qing took a deep breath. He still hugged ice and fire to his lower abdomen and moved the stars to form the fighting formula. Bang! The air around him exploded and he also became huge. His muscles were bulging and his skin was greenish-black. Every part of his body was filled with explosive power. Gotcha. Lu Qing turned his back and clenched his fists. He tore through the air barrier and hit the huge golden Buddha palm like a mosquito. Rumble. Lu Qing's feet sank more than 7 inches into the ground. However, the golden Buddha's palm rapidly shrank and was momentarily suspended in midair. Now was the time. Lu Qing didn't attempt to break free. Instead, he seized the opportunity and arched his back. Darkness appeared around him. Coldness pervaded the air, and the stars sparkled brightly. This was his ultimate move, Cosmic Phantom. There was no gap or obstruction between it and the previous moves. It was as if he had been mentally prepared for this. Lu Qing didn't use the 9 words formula against the 6 syllables of Sanskrit mantra. Instead, he relied on the 9 rotations of 5 flames, which drained a lot of power. He wanted to give the living Buddha a chance to attack at close range. His powerful mind and Bodhi mantra had shrunk Lu Qing's senses to a range of 5 meters. Even if he wanted to exchange long-range attacks with the enemy, he wouldn't be able to tell the difference between reality and illusion. He wouldn't be able to suppress the living Buddha like he did with Xi and Xiaoya. Therefore, he deliberately showed weakness and dealt with it simply. He wanted to draw the battle into the realm of close combat and use his rich experience to search for opportunities to win. As Lu Qing straightened his back and raised both his hands, the starry sky shifted upwards. Darkness covered the palms that were still emitting a faint golden glow. Layers of crystal-clear ice condensed and sealed the Buddha's palm. Vairocana lost its mystical appearance and reverted to the big-headed and thick-necked Sher Shan. This was the first time Lu Qing truly saw his opponent since the start of the battle. Although he could grasp the enemy's figure within a range of 5 meters during the short exchange, he couldn't see his actual appearance. Like a flash of lightning, the layer of ice spread rapidly, sealing the living Buddha Sher Shan within. This confirmed Lu Qing's suspicions. The complete version of Thought Steel was also limited by distance. In fact, it was only effective within a range of a few meters. His previous thoughts were hidden from the living Buddha. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the dark universe, the stars flew out and crashed into Sher Shan, who was in the ice. At this moment, the living Buddha, who had yet to lose his consciousness and control of his body, suddenly erupted with layers of golden light. They transformed into a huge lotus flower that first bloomed and then formed a bud, completely enveloping Sher Shan. In an instant, the surrounding ice blocks seemed to have become heavier and plummeted, bringing the living Buddha away from most of the stars. Rumble. 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 Streaks of red light flashed like dense rocket launchers. Explosions sounded one after another. With both feet on the ground, the living Buddha Sher Shan was no longer as sacred and dignified as before. The ice layer around him shattered and even melted into water. The lotus flower formed by the Buddha's light also dissipated, leaving many tattered spots on his yellow warrior monk robe. On the other side, Lu Qing had already broken free from the ground. He stood there, judging the timing and accumulating his strength. Every joint, every muscle, and every tendon in his body was making muffled noises. The sound was dense and shocking, and the snow that suddenly fell from the sky was also stacking up in the air, quickly forming a white divine mountain that seemed both real and illusory. Bam! Just as the living Buddha was about to land, Lu Qing clenched his fist and punched forward. The few meters between them were filled up in an instant. Rumble. The accumulated strength in Lu Qing's body burst out like a flood. The snow mountain around him collapsed with a loud bang. Accompanied by the wind from his punch, it rushed towards the living Buddha in a mighty manner. This was a variant of the ice sect's snowstorm, the real mega avalanche. The ice sect didn't only have control and martial arts that could gradually influence the opponent, they also had secret arts for strong attacks. The only problem was that they took too long to prepare. Faced with the collapse of the snow mountain, Sher Shan didn't have time to react. He could only take a deep breath, expand his body, gather the Buddha's light, and transform into the simple wisdom king with indigo skin. He smashed forward with all 6 arms. Rumble. White flowers flew in all directions. The mega avalanche paused for a moment before continuing forward, leveling the pothole. Sher Shan took advantage of the pause and dodged pathetically, avoiding the mega avalanche. However, before he could widen the distance, Lu Qing closed in again. He spread out his arms, coordinated with his legs, and launched a round of aggressive attacks. He couldn't let the living Buddha leave this area again. He used mental suppression and the Bodhi mantra to regain control of the situation. Bam bam bam. Lu Qing's fists were burning with a faint purple hue, showing a heavy and scorching intent. His attacks were extremely aggressive, burning off Sher Shan's sleeves and charring his skin. On the other hand, the living Buddha stood firmly on the ground, neither swaying nor swaying. Fist against fist, foot against foot, he did not show the slightest sign of weakness. The negative effects and the burning effect of the fire force seemed to have disappeared without a trace. With his feet as the center, cracks appeared on the ground. Each crack had traces of being burned. Lu Qing attacked crazily for a while and gradually reached the point where he needed to catch his breath. Seeing that the living Buddha was still as unmoving as a mountain, another plan flashed through his mind. Take the initiative to change the rhythm and find an opportunity to use the formation formula. Bam! Lu Qing swung his right fist to the side, wearing a faint purple flame glove, and ruthlessly smashed it on Sher Shan's charred forearm, causing his muscles to tremble slightly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Qing took the initiative to swing backwards. Just as he was about to quickly use the formation formula, he suddenly thought of the living Buddha's thought steal. He knows that I will use the formation formula. Lu Qing followed his instincts and withdrew his Dan force, distancing the stars from the darkness and causing the edges of the universe to become colder. Another art of control, Lament of the Ice Queen. Bam! Lu Qing took another step forward and struck out with his palm. Sher Shan, who was about to turn around, stopped abruptly and raised his hand to push back. Thoughtsteal can indeed hear my thoughts, but if I change my mind in a split second he might not be able to react in time. Lu Qing seemed to have discovered something. His palm strike was so resolute. Bam! Amidst the dull thud, the living Buddha's surroundings burned with glassy flames. They were instantly frozen, suspended in the air like a work of art. However, they quickly collapsed. Bam bam bam. The collapse of the guardian glassy flames prevented Sher Shan from being sealed by the layer of ice. He took a step back and his expression turned solemn. Seeing this, Lu Qing raised his other hand and formed a seal. He said in a low voice, "Formation." At the same time, the living Buddha Sher Shan also said solemnly, "One." The Buddhas will intensified and the air became tame, not turning into a cage. Bam! The living Buddha took a step forward, his expression solemn and his gaze indifferent. He struck out with his palm as though he was looking down at Lu Qing. Lu Qing suddenly felt a sense of danger. Just as he was about to dodge, he suddenly became dazed. He felt as though he had become a monk reciting scriptures and fiddling with prayer beads all night long. He seemed to be devout and focused, but he would always pause inadvertently as though he was thinking of a certain someone, prostrating on the ground, kowtowing step by step in a pilgrimage, but the image in his mind wasn't of Buddha, ostracized, far away from home, unable to find peace. Fragments of memories appeared one after another, causing Lu Qing to experience thousands of years in an instant, experiencing the incomplete lives of generations of living Buddhas. This made him feel as though his memories were in chaos and he was mentally and physically exhausted. Finally, after much difficulty, he outlined the confrontation formula. His body and mind were clear, but his spirit was also drained. The figure of the living Buddha before him became clear. Lu Qing made a turn to avoid facing him head-on and was about to use the simplified wholeness formula to refresh his status. However, at this moment, his sense of danger suddenly emerged. Before he could react, he felt a chill on his forehead. Sher Shan's thick palm had already pressed down on his forehead. The living Buddha's figure re-outlined, his expression calm. Lu Qing stopped in his tracks and understood the reason. Just now his spirit was drained and his ice heart broke. Even if he was within 5 meters, he was still confused by the illusion. At this moment, the referee announced loudly, "The living Buddha wins. P.S. Before 12 a.m., please guarantee the minimum monthly votes." Chapter 638. As expected of the mysterious living Buddha. Hearing the referee's announcement, Lu Qing stopped drawing the outline of the wholeness formula, stood up straight and cupped his hands in greeting. Living Buddha Sher Shan smiled and put his palms together. He chanted the Buddha's name softly. Despite his young age, he had the air of an eminent monk. He turned around leisurely and walked to the side of River Heart Island. After a few steps, he suddenly paused, rubbed his stomach and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. After doing all this, he pretended to look around casually and quickened his pace. He didn't take the boat but walked directly on the water. He returned to the ship where Daxing Temple was and took the prepared vegetarian meal from the hands of the little monk who came up to him. As he ate contentedly, Sher Shan thought helplessly that as a living Buddha of Tantric Buddhism, he actually had to abide by Daxing Temple's commandments and eat vegetarian. Lu Qing rubbed his throbbing temples, walked to the side of the boat and jumped on. He didn't cause any turbulence or ripples. Once the boat started moving, he couldn't help but look back at River Heart Island. He replayed the previous battle. The living Buddha's realm and standard were indeed much stronger than his, especially in the field of mental strength. He could have beaten his current self, and he had fully utilized this trait. It wasn't difficult for him to win. With his current strength, he had barely touched the edge of second pin. He was able to win against Wang Ke because of his rich experience in life and death battles. Not to mention his outstanding performance on the spot, the key to his victory was that Wang Ke wasn't used to his ice and fire as one, and fusion of martial arts and cultivation fighting style. He was caught off guard by certain moves and suffered a loss. If they had immediately fought a second or third time, the outcome might not have been the same. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Qing reassessed himself and returned the little bit of arrogance he had accumulated since he made the great leap back to its original form. This mentality was not something that could be used for the rest of one's life. As one's strength increased and one's victories piled up, pride and arrogance would still quietly grow. One had to constantly wipe one's heart and soul. Almost all the experts more or less had similar problems, and the Dragon King's conceit was even more obvious to the extreme. After reviewing his battle and himself, Lu Qing approached Longhu Club's ship. He pressed the button and leaped up, landing firmly on the deck. He took his phone, ring, wallet, and other items from Amen. At this moment, Yen Zhika had already sent a message. Looking up at the sky, rolling my eyes, she said, "I feel like you were tricked by the Bodhi mantra in the end." "Yes." Lu Qing turned sideways to Amen, using his body to block any possible line of sight. He sent an emoji of dark clouds over my head, squatting in the corner and drawing circles. "You can start comforting me now, but why do I feel that you don't look too sad?" Yen Zhika replied with a blank expression. Lu Qing scratched his chin and said, "Maybe it's because I was mentally prepared. Anyway, I haven't been eliminated yet. Not liking to lose is one thing, but knowing one's own limitations is another. I'm not depressed now, but I'm suddenly filled with motivation. I can't wait to watch the replay and study the living Buddha's fighting style in depth. I can't wait to have another match with him." "That's a good attitude. Come, let me give you a kiss," Yen Zhika said, half complimenting and half consoling him. She quickly changed the topic. "Is the living Buddha's mental strength very powerful?" "His penultimate palm strike is similar to the heart reflection punch of the Theravada sect. They both imprint their own feelings into my heart. However, the living Buddha's methods are more profound. The heart reflection punch can only transmit specific feelings like pain, torture, and distress. But he can pull me into his memories and experience 1,000 years in an instant, experiencing the lives of generations of living Buddhas. If a person below the physical invulnerability stage were to encounter such a situation multiple times, they might break down on the spot or have a split personality. That's why the Bodhi mantra is also known as the Bodhi mantra." Yen Zhika's beautiful eyes rolled up as she speculated with great interest. Experiencing memories and experiencing life. "Qing, do you think the reincarnation of the living Buddhas is related to this Bodhi heart mantra? But it's more complicated and has stricter Dharma access?" Lu Qing glanced at it and replied with an emoji of taking in a deep breath, "Hey, you don't say. I think it's possible. Kochien has a great eye. When the reincarnated soul child was not found, the previous generation of living Buddha would use the disciple with the best potential as a substitute. However, it would be impossible for them to perform the complete enlightenment. At such times, using a simplified version of the Bodhi mantra might be a backup plan to ensure continuity." Yen Zhika laughed and said, "Don't think about it. Let's talk about it after some rest. Someone is exhausted. I'm going for my morning exercise, okay." Lu Qing waved goodbye and put the diamond ring back on his finger. He adjusted it so that it was facing up. He looked at the horizon subconsciously and saw the red clouds burning. Dusk was coming and the sun was setting in the west. After Yen Zhika put down her phone, she flipped open the blanket and got out of bed. After washing up, she changed into a white martial arts suit with black edges. She rubbed the ring on her left hand and adjusted its position slightly. She went downstairs quietly and ran towards the lawn under the faint light of dawn. At this time the sky was still dark. A little orange light appeared in the distance and slowly expanded. After a nap in the car, Lu Qing was full of energy again when he returned to the hotel. Through the TV screen he watched the battle that night. Peng Liyun had turned the tables and defeated the opponent who was stronger than him. He stood firmly in the team that hadn't been eliminated. Renly was lucky to meet an opponent who was slightly weaker than her. After a tough battle, she won again. She was one of the few martial artists who had maintained a winning streak since the beginning of the competition. While watching the battle, Lu Cheng was in a good mood. He checked the news and peeked at his own forum. He was not disappointed when he saw that everyone thought it was natural for him to lose to Living Buddha. He just objectively analyzed the gap between them and looked forward to the speed of catching up. 2 more years. Maybe only 1 more year. At 9:30 in the evening, the last match of the 4th round came to an end. There were only 44 martial artists left who had not been eliminated. When the 5th round was held the day after tomorrow, the top 32 would definitely be determined. This was because the majority of the survivors were currently bearing a loss. 10 minutes later, the organizing committee broadcasted the 5th round of the lot drawing ceremony. The first one was Renli from Kongtong School. Then Renli's opponent was announced. Wuxia from Shushan Study. Lu Cheng was delighted. He switched to the group and tagged Renli. The strong opponent you were hoping for is here. This was the leader of Shushan Study, the mighty one with the most titles, King of Swords Wu Qiao. Of course, most of his titles were won before the era of the legendary twins. Later, due to old age, his condition began to deteriorate. He had only won 1 title in the competition between Warrior Sage and Dragon King. Renli quickly appeared and replied with shining eyes, "He's my idol. To be able to compete with your idol in the arena is also a dream come true." Lu Cheng echoed emotionally. Taoist sword, Wu Qiao was a pure and powerful swordsman. He lost his left hand and half of his leg in a life-and-death battle in his early years. He was considered to be at the end of his martial arts career and had no hope of further improvement. However, with his terrifying willpower, he broke through the shackles and created the legend of King of Swords. In the past 20 years, all swordsmen more or less regarded him as a role model. Just as Lu Cheng finished his thoughts, Peng Liyun appeared and said, "Not bad indeed. I also hope to meet a long-awaited opponent." "Who's your long-awaited opponent?" asked An Chaoyang curiously. Peng Liyun thought for a while and said, "There are too many. It's hard to give an example." The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He replied with disdain, "Priest, I think you're as good at making lame jokes as my brother-in-law." Just as he finished, Peng Liyun's name was read out by the guest. Then his opponent was confirmed. Daxing Temple Zhihai. Wisdom King Zhihai. Another battle of the Heavenly Sons. "I've been looking forward to this for a long time." Peng Liyun typed out a message. He didn't even consider the possibility of being eliminated if he lost another match. At this moment, Lu Cheng heard his name. He quickly focused and looked forward to his opponent. After a while, the guest flipped a piece of paper and showed it. Shangqing Sect Warrior Sage Chen Donglu. F***C. Do you have to be so ruthless? Facing the big boss in the last round. Lu Cheng didn't know if he should be depressed or happy. At this moment, An Chaoyang reminded him. "You're in the 18th match. Maybe you won't have to fight Warrior Sage. Enough people have been eliminated before. Same goes for Priest. The 17th match might not even happen." In the first 16 matches, most of the participants had lost at least 1 match. In fact, 9 of the matches were between them. There was bound to be someone eliminated. As long as another 12 were eliminated, the 5th round would be over. Makes sense. Lu Cheng suddenly felt a little disappointed. After they finished their discussion and went to do other things, Renli suddenly appeared again and asked, "Who's your brother-in-law? The guest who drew the lot seems to be the sect leader of your sect, Priest. Where is he?" She was too excited and agitated just now. P.S. Guaranteed monthly votes. Chapter 639. Keeping his emotions in check, Lu Cheng sent the results of the draw to Yan Zhika. Covering face expression. "I'm about to experience the highest level below the forbidden level." This was the representation of the strongest combat strength among the physical invulnerability experts. After lamenting, he said truthfully, "It's a pity that I might not be able to participate in this round. I'm sure there will be enough people in the earlier rounds." After a few seconds, Yan Zhika, who had been worried about this, replied, covering mouth expression, "I feel like you're trembling in fear and looking forward to it. You masochist." Without waiting for Lu Cheng's reply, she added, sitting obediently expression. "This feels like a dream. 3 years ago, if you had said that your goal was to face the warrior sage in a few years, I would have cheered you on while laughing at you mercilessly. Life is indeed like a dream. To be honest, I haven't thought about how far I'll go in this master battle. It'll depend on my luck, replied Lu Qing. Snickering expression. Since that's the case, it's not a bad thing to take the opportunity to find the gap between myself and the top physical invulnerability experts. Ya Qing is the best, replied Yan Zhika half cheekily and half approvingly. While she was busy with her studies, Lu Qing skimmed through the highlights of warrior sage Qian Dongluo's last 30 matches. What if they really meet in the 5th round? Even though it was just a quick glance, Lu Qing couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. There was only one thought in his mind, so King awesome. It wasn't that he hadn't watched Qian Dongluo's matches in the past. The matches between the warrior sage and the Dragon King were replayed repeatedly and still popular. However, from the perspective of an opponent, a physical invulnerability expert, he felt different when he observed this once-in-a-thousand-years genius. Xian Xiaoye had fused the death sect and surpassed her predecessors. Her lethal chill was intimidating. Wang Ke had a deep understanding of martial arts. His normal punches and kicks were already much more powerful than those of the same level. His physical invulnerability moves were faster and more powerful. The living Buddha had a strong spirit and many tricks up his sleeves. It was hard to tell what was real and what was fake. These were the characteristics and strengths of the few physical invulnerability mighty ones that Lu Qing had fought before. And the warrior sage Qian Donglu had them all. He was no longer a potential grandmaster or a future grandmaster. He was a grandmaster in name and in reality. He had created many martial arts and all kinds of secret arts were terrifyingly pure. He had returned to the origin. After watching the battle videos of the warrior sage, I feel a chill in my heart. Lu Qing picked up his phone and sent an emoji to Yan Zhika with tears of laughter. I'm going out for supper to calm myself down. After he changed his clothes and was ready to go out, Yan Zhika replied with an emoji of holding back her laughter. Come, let big sister rub your head. I heard that the crayfish in Jianghu is very good. You can try it. A few seconds later, she sent an emoji of squatting in the corner and drawing circles. I was wrong. It's already November. There's definitely no meat left in the crayfish. I've been studying too much recently and forgot about this. Haha, I've already thought about it. There's a barbecue stall here that's not bad. If it's comparable to the barbecue in Xioshan, I'll take you there next time. Lu Qing put on a pair of black-framed glasses that covered half of his face and a brown baseball cap. He took his phone and wallet and checked himself in the mirror at the entrance. After confirming that he looked good, he opened the door and walked out of the hotel. He didn't want to disturb Amen. There was no need to trouble her assistant with such things. The autumn wind was rustling and the night was chilly. Lu Qing followed the GPS and walked 2 streets in a strolling manner. Finally, he saw the brick factory barbecue. He saw that the roadside tables were filled with people at the same time. Business is so good. The food should be good. Lu Qing muttered. He walked over and found the waitress. Are you eating here or taking away? The waitress asked in an orderly manner. Lu Qing felt the refreshing autumn wind and answered with a smile, I'll eat here. Then you'll have to suffer a little. The waitress said embarrassedly, Look, we don't have any more tables. How about we give you a stool to put the barbecue on? It's just right for you to sit on a small stool. Lu Qing looked at the plastic stool. He pondered for a few seconds and said, Sure. A mighty one with physical invulnerability, the heavenly son of China, was sitting on a small stool with a blue plastic stool in front of him. Lu Qing was in a daze at first. Then he took a picture and sent it to his little fairy. It feels like doing homework at the door when I was young. Back then, in order to watch the children play, he would bring out 2 stools, one high and one short, and sit in the open space outside the corridor to do his homework. He would do his homework for a while and play for a while. Before Yan Zhika could reply, his eyes were suddenly covered by a black shadow. He looked up and saw a tall and fat man standing in front of him, holding a small stool and a plastic stool in his hands. The fat man was wearing a gray plush hat and a black short-sleeved t-shirt. Although he hid it well, Lu Qing recognized him at first glance. He was the living Buddha Shi Shan, who had just defeated him in the afternoon. Living Buddha Shi Shan. Shi Shan had just sat down when he felt someone sizing him up. He followed the line of sight and was stunned. Lu Qing? In the background of the barbecue stall, the two of them stared at each other and didn't speak for a long time until the waitress came over and asked, What would you like to order? Lu Qing was stunned for a few seconds and said, 20 sticks of beef, 20 sticks of pork ribs. Sher Shan followed closely and said, 20 sticks of potatoes, 20 sticks of eggplant. After announcing their dishes, they paused for a moment. Lu Qing and Sher Shan suddenly laughed and were no longer restrained. Haha, I didn't expect to meet you, Sher Shan said casually. Lu Qing shook his head and laughed. After changing the way he addressed Sher Shan a few times, he said, I also didn't expect Master to come to such a place personally. Sher Shan was silent for a while before replying, that sounds a little weird. Just a casual remark. Lu Qing laughed dryly and didn't say anything else. They weren't familiar with each other and lacked the foundation to continue the conversation. But should I take the initiative to pay the bill later? Do physical invulnerability experts care about this? It's just a matter of a few barbecue skewers? Lu Qing's thoughts flew and he was in a dilemma. He picked up his phone and shared this matter with Coach Yen for guidance. However, Yen Zhika was in the middle of an important lesson and didn't reply immediately. After a while, the waitress served some of the barbecue skewers. The streaky pork shone brightly and the aroma was strong. Sher Shan couldn't help but swallow his saliva at the small table opposite him. Lu Qing was amused and recalled that Living Buddha only ordered vegetarian dishes. He couldn't help but tease, Master, do you want to eat? From the memory fragments you passed on to me, Tantric Buddhism doesn't abstain from this. Sher Shan's expression changed slightly and he sighed with a smile. Some monks in Tantric Buddhism, let me put it in words that you can understand. In order to see through killing, they advocate entering into killing. After experiencing it and understanding it, they can achieve great enlightenment. So, it's fine for Master to eat meat skewers. After all, it's to see through? Lu Qing smiled and asked knowingly. Sher Shan shook his head slightly. What I mean is that this is wrong. It's just an excuse for your own enjoyment and mistakes. Experiencing it doesn't mean you have to do it yourself. Everything in the world is there for you to look up to. That's true. Lu Qing replied thoughtfully. He then smiled and said, anyway, generations of living Buddhas have experienced eating meat. Master, you're also experienced. It's not a loss. Yes, it's not a loss. Sher Shan sighed. How can modern spices and modern culinary skills be compared to ancient times? I pity you. Lu Qing didn't say what was on his mind. Instead, he recommended good food. There's a vegetarian restaurant in Gaofen called Yalu. The meat dishes they make taste the same as the real thing. Master, you can try it when you're free. Following that, the two of them chatted happily. When the barbecue skewers were served, Lu Qing took a picture and sent it to his little fairy. At this moment, Yen Zhika finally had a chance. Stunned expression, she said, the big monk is so greedy. In the end, he met a primary school student doing his homework at the door. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He quickly typed, please show some respect. These are two mighty ones with physical invulnerability. After replying, he raised his head and saw Sher Shan looking at him with a weird expression. Haven't you seen other people showing off their love? Lu Qing cursed in his heart. Soon after, he remembered that the living Buddha in the memory fragments also had feelings. Sher Shan laughed and said, love is easy to find but it's hard to find long-term. I don't like to hear this. Lu Qing organized his words and said, nothing in the universe can last forever. It's the same for stars and living things. If that's the case, why do we have to hope for a relationship that won't change? Life is short. As long as we can maintain our love for a little longer than this, it's fine. After a moment of silence, Sher Shan picked up the barbecue and said, almsgiver, your words are quite sharp. After saying that, he stood up and turned around to leave. I thought Master would say a few words of wisdom, said Lu Qing, slightly surprised. Sher Shan's face was very young, and his expression was a little mischievous. However, he gave off a feeling of weariness. I won't say it, I won't say it. It's hard to say it. He shook his head, carried the barbecue and walked away slowly. Lu Qing stared blankly and felt that Sher Shan did have the demeanor of an expert. At this moment, the waitress came over. Looking at Sher Shan's back, she said, you're paying for his bill? Ha! Lu Qing was dumbfounded. This monk didn't pay the bill. Where's the conscience of a monk? After being laughed at by Yen Zhika for more than a day, Lu Qing welcomed the 5th round of the double elimination competition. Ren Li, who was the first to fight, lost to the King of Swords, Wuxia, without any chance to retaliate. After the first 16 rounds, there were a total of 11 eliminated participants. Peng Liyun had no choice but to go on stage and challenge the Wisdom King Zhi Hai. This battle was unusually intense. There were a few times when Lu Qing thought that Peng Liyun could turn the tables, but the Wisdom King easily resolved the situation. In the end, the Wisdom King won without any controversy. With Peng Liyun's elimination, Lu Qing entered the top 32 and didn't face the warrior sage Qian Donglu. At 9 p.m. the draw for the top 32 began. He heard his name in the second round. Longhu Club Lu Qing. When Lu Qing sat up straight, his opponent appeared. Guanwai League Lu Yongyuan. God-slaying saber Lu Yongyuan, the man with the potential to become the King of Swords. P.S. Damn, after returning to Sichuan, of course I have to accompany my parents. Their schedule is very different from mine, so I'll have to put up with them for the next few days. That's why the update times are sometimes early and sometimes late. Chapter 640. As a veteran fan of professional matches, the moment he heard his opponent's name, all sorts of information about him appeared in his mind. Lu Yongyuan was the champion of the Guanwai League, a first pin expert who had dominated for more than a decade. He was a quarter Russian and his facial features were well defined. He was quite handsome and his eyes even had a faint green tint. Ever since he turned 30, his hair had been combed back neatly. Even though he had aged a few years, he looked more like a leader. Lu Yongyuan was born in the martial arts school system of the Yanzhou League. He was only a year younger than Dong Baxin, and in that era he was as famous as Dong Baxin, just like Peng Liyun and Ren Li in the first 2 years of the university martial arts circle. It was just that his reputation was limited to a smaller circle and wasn't as well known. After reaching the Dan stage, he was roped in by the Guanwai League in his hometown and left his alma mater. If he had kept a low profile, no one would remember him and no one would slander him. However, he grew stronger and stronger day by day. Therefore, the hatred and disgust of the supporters of the Yanzhou League grew by the day. They felt that he had betrayed them and was a complete traitor. If he had stayed in the capital and formed a double insurance with Dong Baxin, and with the cooperation of the first pin experts like Lin Shuyao, the Yanzhou League today would have been able to compete with the Longhu League, Shangqing League, and Daxing League. Lu Yongyuan didn't care about this. In an interview he even said that being condemned by the public would only make him stronger. This was the truth. He was the kind of martial artist who would perform better in bigger situations. The stronger the enemy he faced, the stronger he would be. He had once slain both the warrior sage and the dragon king when they were in perfect condition, leaving behind a beautiful story. This was also the origin of the nickname, God-slaying saber. However, other than the God-slaying saber, he was also known as the nervous saber. When he encountered an opponent of the same level but not as strong as him, he was often listless, unexcited, and absent-minded. As a result, he became the title-level expert who had been defeated the most times. Because of this, he had only received 2 titles in total, and they didn't include the warrior sage and the king. Regardless, the God-slaying saber was one of the few big shots in the martial arts world. In the hotel where the Guanwai League was staying, Lu Yongyuan, with his slicked-back hair, was lying on a deck chair on the balcony. Outside the window, the night was dark and the lights were bright. He closed his eyes and gently tapped the dark green scabbard beside him with his right hand. The world-famous God-slaying saber was placed inside as if it was quietly sleeping, waiting for the moment when the wind and clouds converged. In the living room, which was separated from the balcony by a door, the big-screen television was broadcasting the drawing ceremony for the top 32. The sound was very low and almost indistinct. When he heard his name, Lu Yongyuan paused in his tapping of the scabbard. He didn't open his eyes. After a short pause, his right hand began to tap the dark green scabbard again. It was slow and natural with a long rhythm. Outside, the autumn rain was hazy, dripping against the window, complementing each other. In this kind of silence and peace, there was suddenly a low and clear sound of collision from the dark green scabbard, as if the saber inside was jumping with joy. The clanging sounds converged into a dragon's roar that seemed to come from the depths of the sea. As soon as the results of the draw were out, many posts appeared in Lu Cheng's fan forum. "All the good names are taken by Dog's expression," said, covering face and sighing expression. "It can't be helped. The top 32 of every title battle are mostly made up of peerless experts and a small number of ordinary physical invulnerability experts who have recently maxed out their luck. It seems that Lu Cheng's luck has come to an end. He didn't draw Ren Li and the others. Since that's the case, it doesn't matter who he fights. After all, it's not his home ground, so he doesn't have any geographical advantage," said, a plumber eating mushrooms. "Eternal nightfall," Yan Shaoling quickly asked. "I heard that on this road passerby likes to fail miserably. Moreover, he fought hard to eliminate Liang Yifan in the 5th round and suffered serious injuries. My senior should have a chance of winning, right? For a physical invulnerability expert with that kind of injury, he will recover in a few days. Don't expect that. Road to the arena mercilessly dispelled Yan Xiaoling's fantasy. Laughing tears expression, said, if God-slaying saber wasn't injured with his usual performance, it's not impossible for him to lose to Lu Qing due to carelessness. But now that he's injured, he will definitely be more cautious and careful. In this case, Lu Qing's chances are slim. It's a bad thing that the opponent is injured. Nye Chi didn't expect such an explanation. It's better to watch a title battle with an attitude of appreciation, said, funny expression, a newcomer to the forum, Tang Chuxia expression. He was a strong talker and was once obsessed with cultivation. As a result, he developed hysteria and shouted every day that today was the age of chaos. Later on, he was accidentally involved in a car accident and almost lost his life. Since then, he turned over a new leaf and resumed his old hobby. As he thought that Lu Qing's performance was very similar to the cultivation in his fantasy, he became a fan. Listening to their replies, Yan Xiaoling replied with an emoji of, I'm in a good mood with a sad face. Then I'll bet on the 10 yuan senior to win. Hey, shouldn't you bet on Lu Yongyuan to win? Lu Qing will be happy if he wins and get money if he loses, said Okamoto's fan, in surprise. Yan Xiaoling looked at them with disdain expression. I'm praying. Do you understand? Praying. Repeat after me, Qi Dao. I want to bet too. I'll bet 20 yuan. Brahmin jumped out. At this time, the drawing of lots continued. The battles between the strong fighters made the audience excited. They couldn't wait for the day after tomorrow to come. Kongtong School Renli? An old Taoist with silver hair mixed with black hair read out a new name. Within a few seconds he picked out Renli's opponent. Shizhou Island Shang Yud. Lion King Shang Yud. During the drawing of lots, they usually only read out the name of the fighter. However, when it came to fighters with titles, they had to add their titles as a sign of respect. It was the same for special titles like Living Buddha. As for fighters like Dragon King and Warrior Sage, who often had 2 or 3 titles at the same time, they would pick their favorite. Fighters who had won the title of King more than 3 times would always have a similar title. As for Qian Donglu, because he had held onto the title of Warrior Sage for a long time, he had mentioned that Warrior Sage was him for a few years. Gradually it became his nickname. Lu Qing, who was chatting with Yan Zhika about the god-slaying saber, heard the result and immediately entered the group chat. Looks like it's your treat this time. Although both of them had encountered titled masters and most likely wouldn't be able to progress any further and would be considered eliminated in the same round, Renli's match would come later, which fit the keyword of persisting longer. I think so too. Agreed Peng Liyun, who had been eliminated by Wisdom King. Hey Taoist, you seem to be in a good mood. Lu Qing deliberately teased. Peng Liyun quickly replied, aren't you the same? A certain husky who had drawn the god-slaying saber was in high spirits. Fights like this were more about finding the problem, recognizing the gap, and gaining something was considered a success. At this moment Renli popped up and said, don't be afraid. The god-slaying saber often loses. Although it's okay to cheer him on, why do I feel like Renli is trying to stir up trouble? In other words, don't be afraid, just do it. Lu Qing's mouth twitched as he gave a dry laugh in response. With this interruption he settled his thoughts and calmed down. He began to collect his emotions and asked Amen to get the video of the god-slaying saber's battle from the club. The afternoon of the day after tomorrow, at the arena on River Heart Island. The sun was high in the sky, the ground was burning, and the river was flowing east. The humidity was heavy. Lu Qing stood at the front of the cruise ship and looked at the leveled ground. At this moment Yan Zhika sent a message. Smirking expression, she said, this is your first time fighting with a weapon, right? Lu Qing replied, snickering expression, if modern firearms don't count. I fought with a gun before. You're so annoying. Don't worry about these details. Yan Zhika replied with a disdainful expression. After chatting for a while, Lu Qing looked up at the referee. He smiled, lowered his head and said, it's my turn. After replying, he locked the screen and passed the phone to Amen. With a light leap, he landed on the bow of the small boat. The waves parted as he moved forward slowly. Just as he reached River Heart Island, he saw a figure approaching from afar and gradually getting bigger. He stood between the water and the sky, as though he could absorb the light, making the area around him seem darker than it was at 2 in the afternoon. Step by step, the well-featured Lu Yong walked forward like an emissary of the eternal night. He held a long saber in his right hand. The dark green scabbard was quiet and restrained. But when Lu Qing saw it, he was shocked. He felt as though there was an evil dragon locked in it that was about to break free and bite him. P.S. This time it's a few minutes earlier, but it'll be at midnight. It should be back to normal by the day after tomorrow. Chapter 641. As Lu Yongyuan walked forward step by step, the entire Jiangxin island gradually darkened. It wasn't until he stopped at the referee's designated spot that the feeling of darkness eased. Lu Yongyuan stood quietly at the same spot. His gaze fell on the hilt of the saber in his right hand. Following the mysterious curve, he looked at the tip of the saber and the soil it pointed at. When Lu Qing approached, he finally raised his head. His pure, blade-like eyes reflected his opponent's figure. It was just a simple glance, but Lu Qing felt as though a divine weapon was pointed at his forehead. The hair on his back stood on end. The surrounding environment was cut out from the world by the saber intent, shrinking into an isolated and sealed cage. Although he didn't draw his saber, it was better than drawing it. This was the first time Lu Qing had encountered such an aura battle. He couldn't help but sigh. Indeed, he lived up to his reputation. At this moment, he felt as though he had been exiled to a desolate desert, facing the boundless darkness alone. He couldn't escape and had nowhere to escape. As this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Qing formed the ice heart. Around him, a mass of red, a mass of gold, and a mass of light blue condensed, illuminating the darkness and resisting the saber force that was enveloping him. Lu Yongyuan didn't stop him. He looked at his 5 flames indifferently. At this moment, the referee finally confirmed the situation. He raised his right hand and announced loudly, "Conversation time starts now." Lu Yongyuan raised his head and looked away from Lu Qing. He looked at the clouds in the distance and said in a deep and magnetic voice, "My saber technique originated from the dark infinite scripture. After 6 years of hard work, I mastered it." When he said this, his expression didn't change at all. His deep and three-dimensional facial features and sparkling green eyes made him look like a demon. His neatly combed back hair was inexplicably dyed with the vicissitudes of life. What was he trying to say? Lu Qing knew very well that the Guanwei League used the dark infinite scripture, which was the secret art of the dark sect, as its foundation. They also mixed in a divine physical skill. Lu Yongyuan didn't wait for his opponent's reply. He stared at the horizon and continued, "In recent years, I have often felt the existence of shackles. The secret art of the predecessors is both a help and a cage. My saber technique originated from this, so it's time to break free from it." He retracted his gaze and looked into Lu Qing's eyes again. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly. "I've spent 5 whole years reviewing myself and my saber techniques. Finally, I've gained something. Previously, when I encountered powerful enemies, my instincts overcame my unfamiliarity. I never had the time to use it. The impulse to swing my saber is getting stronger and stronger." This battle came at the right time. Halfway through, Lu Qing roughly understood what his opponent was trying to say. Lu Yongyuan had mastered what he had learned in the first half of his life and created his own unique blade technique. However, due to the fact that he had encountered opponents of similar strength in the previous rounds, he had habitually used his original moves under great pressure. He hadn't found an opportunity to practice his new technique in actual combat. Now he wanted to test the knife on himself. Without waiting for Lu Qing to speak, Lu Yongyuan switched the weapon to his left hand. His right hand gripped the hilt of the saber, which had been rubbed until it shone like a mirror. "As long as you can block 9 of my attacks, I will consider this as my loss." As soon as he said that, the audience who were listening to the broadcast went into an uproar. Isn't this looking down on him?" Nye Chichi posted in astonishment. In her opinion, even if Lu Qing was facing a titled mighty one in perfect condition, as long as it wasn't the likes of Dragon King or Warrior Sage, even if Lu Qing lost miserably in the end, he wouldn't be defeated in 9 moves. It wouldn't be a problem for him to withstand 20 to 30 moves. It would be normal for him to fight for 5 to 6 minutes. Exactly. Eternal Nightfall, Yin Shaoling and Brahmin couldn't find any other words to say. They could only follow suit. This guy is too arrogant. Unparalleled Dragon King replied, comical expression. You guys fell for the provocation of God-slaying saber. That's true. Yan Shaoling replied, scratching head expression. Then will Lu Yongyuan admit defeat if Senior can withstand 9 attacks? Definitely. Under the watchful eyes of so many people in broad daylight, every word is as good as a nail. Unless he doesn't want his old face anymore. Unparalleled Dragon King replied without hesitation. Which martial artist doesn't care about face? Puzzled expression, Yan Shaoling asked again, if Senior doesn't take the provocation, won't he be digging his own grave? This shows that he's very confident in his self-created saber technique. Unparalleled Dragon King said firmly. See, you said it yourself. His confidence is inflated and he looks down on others too much. He's too arrogant. Yan Shaoling changed the topic again. Unparalleled Dragon King was speechless. After a while he replied, damn, your IQ is actually online today. This was the first time Lu Qing encountered such a situation. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't angry. However, he quickly suppressed his agitated thoughts with icy heart, and began to suspect Lu Yongyuan's true intentions. Is he trying to provoke me? To make me lose my cool and choose to be rash? That's not right. He should know that I've mastered enemy heart-freezing move. Such psychological warfare wouldn't be effective. Is he serious? As thoughts ran through his mind, Lu Cheng's eyes became as deep as the starry sky. His tone was calm as he replied, then I'll look forward to seeing Senior's saber technique. He didn't agree to the promise of 9 sabers, but he didn't deny it either. Lu Yongyuan nodded slightly and half closed his eyes. He didn't speak anymore, as though he had turned into a stone statue. After a short while, the referee at the edge of Riverheart Island gathered his Dantian Chi and shouted, begin! Clang! A long and distant sound suddenly came from Lu Yongyuan's scabbard. It was like the roar of a real dragon from the depths of the ocean, reverberating in Lu Cheng's ears and heart. The sound of the saber reached its peak as soon as it appeared. Lu Yongyuan flicked and released his left hand, and his right hand suddenly pulled out the famous, God-slaying saber. With a twist of his waist and a pull of his shoulder, the saber light cut across a distance of more than 30 meters and slashed towards Lu Cheng. It seemed to have absorbed all the light around it, making it brighter and purer. It made the 20-meter radius around Lu Cheng darker and darker. All sorts of hidden dangers were brewing in the darkness. Zzzzzzzzzzzzz. The golden, crimson, and faint purple colors around Lu Cheng were eroded by the darkness. They shrunk rapidly and were on the verge of going out of control. They were like snow under the scorching sun at noon. In his eyes, the line of heavenly light was dazzling and trembling continuously. Every tremor seemed to contain a change that corresponded to different dodging methods. At this moment, Lu Cheng didn't hesitate. He felt that retreating wasn't a good idea, and neither was defending. Once he used his body movement, he might be able to dodge the saber light, but he wouldn't be able to escape the terrifying darkness. Vice versa. This was a two-pronged attack with natural coordination. Thoughts flashed through his mind. With the reflection of his god, Lu Cheng no longer hesitated. Following his final judgment, he made a response. He gathered the half-melted crimson, faint blue, and faint purple fireballs into a star that didn't explode but emitted light and heat. The moment the darkness was illuminated, he suddenly raised his hands and slapped towards the saber light from both sides. The positions where his palms were facing each other were deep and cold. Bam! Zzzzzzzzzzzzz. The brilliance gathered on the god-slaying saber was about to explode, but it was swallowed up by the darkness and disappeared without a trace. Light against darkness, darkness against light. In that split second, Lu Cheng grasped the characteristics of his cosmic flow and used all his strength. With the star on the outside and the darkness on the inside, he finally managed to block Lu Yongyuan's first strike. But before he could get a good look at the god-slaying saber or feel its metallic coldness, he heard the saber vibrating at high speed. He realized that there was nothing between his palms. The god-slaying saber had disappeared. It had disappeared mysteriously as though it had never existed. At this moment, the surroundings were dark, and the saber seemed to have melted into it. Lu Cheng felt a sense of danger. Exerting strength in his legs, he swung his waist and bounced more than 10 meters away. At the same time, he threw a punch with Emperor Yin and Ice Spirit in front of him. Blazing white flames with hints of purple intersected with the white frost of ice crystals. Bam! 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 clang. After a few clangs, Lu Cheng's fists, which were covered in heavy purple flames, hit something solid. Sparks flew everywhere, and the saber that had disappeared reappeared in front of him. As he was unsteady on his feet while retreating, after blocking the god-slaying saber, Lu Cheng's body swayed and staggered. At this moment, Lu Yongyuan suddenly lowered his back and bounced out. He ran around his opponent at high speed, leaving behind 9 shadows in the blink of an eye. Each of his shadows held a saber and slashed forward ferociously. The saber light was deep and terrifying, turning into a torrential downpour that enveloped Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng felt that his enemy had finally stretched his body and revealed his true form. A black dragon with 9 heads spiraled downwards, opening its 9 mouths and tearing at him at the same time. It was violent and ferocious. The shadows were definitely remnants, but the saber light could be divided into 9 real shadows. Being attacked from all directions, Lu Cheng couldn't find an opening to dodge. He could only form an ice wall to cover his body. Clang, 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 clang. The saber light tore the crystal apart, causing it to disintegrate rapidly. Taking advantage of this short delay, Lu Cheng visualized and gathered his force. Bam, 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 bam. Just as the ice wall was completely broken, he had already exploded his Dan Qi. His fists were blazing white and slightly purple. His invasion was like fire, his attack was like fire. Clang, clang. With the help of the deity above him, Lu Cheng's machine-gun-like fist shattered most of the remaining saber light, shattering the darkness that enveloped him. Then he took a few steps back to distance himself from Lu Yongyuan, preparing for the 4th saber strike. At this moment, Lu Cheng looked fine on the surface, but the clothes on his back were torn, revealing a foot-long saber wound. His flesh was twisted and the color was black. On the other side, Lu Yongyuan didn't take advantage of the situation to close in. Instead, he stood in place and said with a slight smile, "The 3 strikes just now were called Utmost Darkness, Daggerless and 9-een. This is the 4th strike." He paused for a moment, then swung his saber again, accompanied by that deep and magnetic voice, "Square and circle." The 4th strike, square and circle. P.S. Looking for recommendations on Monday that you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.